Welcome to Late Night at the Movies, episode 22 on the Late Night Chat Network. And today we're discussing Of Mice and Men. JT's pick, of course, because only a guy like
Don't sound so excited.
clearly pick a movie like this.
What's wrong with this movie, man?
JT's a little depressed, so he wanted to make all of us depressed by watching this film.
Yeah, you go fuck yourself. Hey.
No, I just screwed up.
No.
Yeah, no, I didn't have an intro song ready for this because I couldn't really find the Of Mice and Men soundtrack on Spotify. So here we are. Here.
Where's Julie? Hey, Julie, man, we need a score for this one.
Yeah, I saw a lot of playlists of Mon's playlists and ones with mice, but no Of Mice. There's actually a band called Of Mice and Men that I found, but we could have played that. It had nothing to do with the movie. Try to make you laugh, Jay. All right, come on, guys. All right, so we're gonna talk about this is JT's pick, as I mentioned. Episode 22 already. Look at this, guys. I mean, we do these monthly. Get ready for another episode this month. By the way, I want to throw that out there. We've been playing kind of catch up with a couple of episodes that we did late. We trickled into the next month, even though we do these monthly on the last two picks. So this is technically March's movie. So stay tuned for another one for April, hopefully in the coming weeks. Check our Instagram account where we'll post it, or the weekly late night chat episodes where we'll announce it the week before it happens. So as always, dates sometimes change, things happen. So just stay tuned. And
guys, I let everybody know on the last episode too. I said, with things with me, you'll be switching. I think I let them know on the live too, so they know that things with me could switch in a second. So if that happens, guess what, guys? You got an ego.
There you go. All right. So, anyways, that being said, JT picked this movie.
And what's so wrong with this movie? Yeah, it's a little down.
Should I put up?
Go.
Do hashtag
I don't know, man. I don't know what to do with this one.
This is why I messaged you today and said I don't know what you were thinking with this one. Like, this is like fucking Landmine City for you. I feel this fucking movie.
Yeah, I said that yesterday to somebody.
I was like, is JT trolling all of us with this pick? First of all, this isn't a movie I think you'd pick. First off, second of all,
it's a great movie, bro.
It was a good movie, yes. So I'll get my thoughts.
I mean, I picked it because I actually like it. I didn't pick it because I'm fucking with you guys. I actually picked it because I really think it's a sincere and it's a real it's a good storyline, man. There's a good story there, and you know what? It's actually wanted me now that I watched it again to read the book.
Did you read the book in school?
No, because this was around the time I was in school to read the book, and this came out, and they did a really good. This actually did a really good depiction of it. Not so crazy as the book, but they did it not a bad job for
right. I never read this book in school. I mean, I'm not sure if they assigned us this or if I just wasn't present in school when they did, but I don't recall that. I know this is a book that they do assign a lot of times in school, though. This is John Steinbeck, based off the John Steinbeck novel Of Mice and Men.
It's always a special school.
Yeah, it's always something I see. There you go. He's already starting, guys.
I didn't. I'm just saying.
You know what I mean? Like, so the reason I said I don't know if Jay is just trolling us with this pick, because like you said, it's quite the sophisticated pick of literature for Jay to pick a movie based off of something like this. First of all, second of all, it takes place in the Depression era. There's racism and there's
I know. I only realized it the second time watching it. Like,
apparently, even mentally challenged is not the right word anymore. So I kind of took a note of that. Like, you're supposed to say mental disability, of course, nowadays, I guess, instead of many of the other things that you could say for this person. But actually, when I looked it up, though, it said that he had a lot of autistic kind of qualities to him, the character that John Malkovich plays in this. But so we'll get into it. But first off, like always, Jay, what this was your pick. So, like, as always, as we mentioned our history with the film before we get into the discussion, Like, what's your history with this movie? Have you seen this many times, or like, like when did you first see it?
I watched it when it actually first came out. I mean, it was a movie that I didn't think I'd watch, but I liked the actors at the time. I was young. I was in high school, maybe a little bit later than when it first came out, because I would have been like 11. So I don't think it'd be the movie I'd be watching at 11. I think I watched the dog version of it, which was what do you call it? Old Yeller. It's basically the same version of this movie. Just this one, they did a lot more talking. Yeah, no, I did. I watched it growing up. I like John Malkovich's character. I like Gary Sinise character, and just the way. And I don't know. I think the type of person that little Lieutenant Dan is there in this movie, and I might refer to him as that here and there, because sometimes I hate pronouncing his last name.
That's how I refer to him while I was watching it too. I was like, Lieutenant Dan over there. I know you always usually call him Lieutenant Dan, right?
Yeah, man. That's what I know him for. You know what I mean? Like, that's what my favorite role of his is. But besides maybe like this one, because this one I think he played a really heartfelt character, and I think that's what made me like the movie so much. And maybe that character alone, right? It could have been anybody doing it, but I think the type of character he was in this movie is the reason why I actually fell in love with this movie, man. And I to be honest with you, I like it. I like it a lot. I forgot how much that I actually forgot about the movie.
All right.
And how quick it actually was.
So yeah, the movie's from 1992. It is based off the book, but of course there is also another older film that kind of did it first, and this has also been one that's been adapted to, like, people have done screenplays and they've done it on like stages and stuff like that. Like, so there's been plays about this.
Oh,
so
yeah.
You all kinds of productions. It's a classic, like Jay said. So yeah, I mean, so you've seen it quite a few times. I have actually never seen this movie, and I've never read the book. So this was a first for me, man. This was a first.
I knew I'd hit you. I get you sometime with something that you've never heard of or seen or like read, or Yeah. I knew I could figure it out someday, and this was the one.
Yeah, this is the one. That's why I'm like, I don't know where Jay's coming at with this pick. I don't know if he's trying to troll the audience or what, right? Because, like I said, there's a lot of J2 type things you got to watch how you say here while we discuss this film. So I'm like, I don't know how Jay would try to put himself through this mental acrobats have tried to discuss this one, but obviously Jay doesn't care. So there you have it.
No, well. Yeah, I even went as far as finding out that if I try to quote the same way that Malkovich quoted,
don't do the voice.
Well, if I say I'm trying to do a good portrayal of the actor acting the part, and I try to do it, then it might not be so bad.
Well, there's your best bud, Farhan. Bonjour. He says he loves it.
There's Lenny. Hey, Lenny, what's going on, Lenny?
There you go.
I have a buddy that reminds me of Lenny. I wonder if he'll show up in the chat tonight.
Oh, God, I hope it's not. I think
you'll see when I say so.
But yeah, so that's my history with it. None. I have no history with this film. This is my first time watching it.
I think I might have watched it with my dad, to be honest with you, for the first time. If that was the thing, maybe that's why I remember it so much. I don't know. I can't quite put it for the first time that I actually watched it, but I always thought it was a longer movie than it actually was.
Yeah, it's like an hour 40, hour 45. It's not too bad by today's standards, where everything's like 3 hours. So it actually told a really good story. I'll tell you straight up before we get into it. I wasn't so sure when this movie started. Pretty slow at the beginning, kind of throws you right into the kind of thick of it. You don't really know what's going on, but that's by design. Of course, you learn later. But like, until they really get to the ranch and you start to get to know the characters and stuff like that, I wasn't so sure about this movie. But then once they got to the ranch and you start to get, learn about the characters and their relationship with one another and stuff like that. That's when I kind of was like, okay, yeah, this is really good actually. So so overall I did end up enjoying it. But I gotta tell you, the first 15, 20 minutes, I was like, I don't know about this, man. I was like, I don't know if Jay really likes this movie, and even given the subject matter, because you can tell they're trying to tell you like an endearing story about really the companionship of these two people, right? And I felt while watching this movie, you could relate a lot, but to this film in the sense that this guy's like a guardian to him. You know what I mean? Like
I think that's what kind of resonates the most with me. I
Sure.
think even when I first watched it, right?
I could see that watching the film. I'm like, I could see why Jay likes this movie in that sense. Like, because the other guy's like the gentle giant kind of dude, right? But like John Malkovich's character, Lenny, like, right? That's his name, right?
Yeah.
And George is kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, I could see like you in the sense that, you know, you like to
defending him,
look after people and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like it's in your nature, I would say. So, like, kind of like this guy, you know, in this one, it was for him as well. Like he just felt like a bondness with this guy, right? So for whatever reason, and he explains it. But yeah, go on. Do you feel like that's the case though with you in this movie? Because I think that's why that's probably one of the reasons I would think you like it.
And I'm a big fan of Gary Sin's version of it just because of that reason. A lot of it's because of that reason, because I see how you can relate to something or somebody that people might not understand as much as other people, you know, but I do.
Sure.
Or I can
relate.
Relate is not relate, but also maybe what's the word I'm looking for besides relate? But also identify. Feel for them, like identify. I feel for it. Yeah, I can feel for that, you know, what he might be going through and what he might be thinking and not realizing. You know, it was just it's weird. It hits so many emotions at so many different parts for me in this movie, and I'm still surprised to realize how much, you know, I did have an effect with this movie. It did affect me somehow in life, and who knows, man, because I watched it so young. Did this have a reason for me to feel that way? Did it help steer me in a direction? You know, because I also wasn't the greatest person when I was younger and giving a fuck about people and stuff like that, saying the right things, doing the right things.
Well, that's why I'm kind of glad. Like, I know sometimes you watch these movies and they help inform you or your life, or at least your perspective on stuff. You know what I mean? Sometimes films can hit you in that sense, in that way, or you can, like, you know, go throughout life and then relate back to certain aspects of films or stories being told in movies and things like that, right? But I feel like I'm glad I watched this movie at a much, like, now and not, you know what I mean? Like, that's cool that, like, it kind of stuck with you, and it's good that you watched it, but I'm glad that I watched it now
as opposed to kind of when I was younger personally, because not to say I would sit there and have made fun of the movie, but I think also, like, you know, it's a tough film to watch, man. There's a lot of uncomfortable kind of themes in this movie, right? I mean, we'll get into it now, but yeah, okay. So let's get into the first. So this is basically, like I said, it takes place during the Depression. It's about two guys that are kind of companions, and about them trying to make their way through life and kind of like set themselves up somewhere, you know what I mean? Like in like a nice situation for themselves. Like they have dreams and ambitions, and they're kind of just looking for work. And the one guy, Lenny, who has a mental disability, tends to get himself in trouble. The film opens up with them running away from a situation, which you kind of learn later on what that was all about. And if anything, it just kind of gets to the point at the end of the film, which we can discuss further. At least my interpretation was that the guy unfortunately just became a burden to George, right? Like, unfortunately, like you can look at that a lot of different ways, but unfortunately, he didn't really leave him much choice in the situation by the end there, right? And we'll get into that ending, because I'm sure it's going to come up in scenes here in a moment. We can kind of talk on that further, but I you know, as a synopsis of the film, I mean, without kind of going into everything right now, I think that's pretty right. Could you agree that that's kind of what the point of the film is, right? And you just follow their journey from there, right? Yeah. And I think it's more of trying to actually let people know what maybe it was like at some point back then, you know. And I'm trying to think during the Depression, is that pre war or post war? I would think in the 30s, right?
Mm-hmm. I think it's after the First World War, I believe.
Yeah, right. Which the big Depression.
Yeah, so it's between it's between them, I believe. 1929 to 1933. So that's when this takes place.
Yeah. And that's the thing is that, and a lot of things back then people were very naive to and ignorant to. Still, I mean, don't get me wrong. You probably have people like that out there today that would still think, that still think along these same lines. I don't know how closely, but
I mean, depending where they're coming from or how isolated they are from society, like regular society, because where, I guess you can point to some places in the South or some uneducated folk, or I don't want to just single them out, really, to be fair. But
I don't mind, but I mean,
I'm just saying, like, in regular society today, I think we've been exposed to enough people with mental disabilities and such like this that they wouldn't treat, like, there probably wasn't as much exposure to this kind of thing for a lot of people back then, I would think.
No, not at all.
That's what I'm saying. So like, I can, not to say like I understand it and you're going to give them a pass, but of course times were different then. So you got to understand, of course, like, you know what I mean? Like, so, and not to say
that they get a pass at that problem. That's unfortunately they get a pass because that time has passed. Right.
Right. And it's not just that. It's not just that. It's about, like, it's not that people would still bully people, I think, with mental disabilities sometimes, which is terrible, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, even in today's. So I don't think you can say that we've gone so far from that you can't understand maybe why this guy is getting given a hard time. But it comes from a lot of people that just don't understand. You know what I mean? Like, and that's why I think, like, at least from when I looked it up, because I was trying to figure out, like, if they really diagnosed, like, what his issue was in this, or his disability, and that they said that, obviously he had autistic qualities and stuff like this, and obviously he lacks social skills, and you know what I mean, like, that kind of stuff, right? So, like, and I I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know all the ins and outs of that, because I don't, but this is just from what I looked up, right, when they were talking about it. So so it's interesting for sure, like, in to look back and watch this film and kind of at this period of time. Like, I enjoy period piece films, period, like, it kind of, you know what I mean, like, I do like them. Kind of gives you a different perspective on kind of stuff, but depending on when it takes place, sometimes they tend sometimes to be boring or not interesting. But once you really kind of get to know the characters in this, I think that's kind of where, once you get to like the characters and know the characters, that's what makes it a tough watch.
And I think, I know, but I think it's easier to, how this style of, and this book was way before its time. There's another version of this movie in 1939 with some other actors.
Yeah, Lon Chaney Jr. and I forgot the other person, which is like the Wolf. Isn't he like Wolfman or like the?
I don't remember his name right now.
I think it's Lon Chaney Jr. or something. Because
I don't even know where you can find that version. I tried looking. Like, that's the black and white. Apparently, my dad said that was a lot better. He said that one was a lot better, but it was different. And Lenny was portrayed as a really big, like, overweight guy then, right? As opposed to just a taller,
Yeah, he was the Wolfman, that actor. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Wait,
not of that film, not in that.
No.
He played also the Wolfman, the guy who was in that movie as well, from the Universal horror, like, monster movies, right? Which I like all those black and white, those old school ones, right?
Those old school ones, yeah, where it's the fakest shit in the world.
Yeah. And I actually didn't look that, and of course this is an old book, I knew that, but, like, I didn't actually know there was an older movie of this until you mentioned
two more, I think.
No, that's what I mean. Like, until you mentioned it on the show the other. And you know what's interesting too, like, this theme in itself, like the whole companionship kind of, like, theme, like you said, like you just mentioned another movie that kind of was like this, that's definitely been used.
Oh yeah,
many more times. Even the theme of another person protecting somebody with a mental disability, like it is in this film, has
whether it be mental disability or
not.
Anything,
no, but that's what I'm saying. But even that theme itself has they've done a lot more times, and even just the kind of, like, two companions kind of like looking out for one another, or just going out on the road and having an adventure, or this kind of thing. Like, that theme has been kind of done to death, and this is probably one of the earliest examples, I'm sure, of that. Right? I don't know if that's a fact, but I mean, if you look at when this was done, the novel and the movie and everything else, then you could imagine that. I'm sure like this is something like that's probably why they teach it in school and everything else, right? It's because this is kind of for sure probably one of the earliest examples of that, right? So
yeah, well, I think too also that a lot has to do with the book, right? The book was written a long time ago. There is quite a few people that were in Hollywood that probably have read this book somewhere along the lines, because it was a big book too, because there wasn't TVs always around either, right? So that was sort of a thing too. Well, it's not a long novel either. Apparently, it's probably shorter than some of the books you got behind you. Like
the novel actually was only written 2 years before the first film.
Yeah, but that's
right away.
Yeah, they tried to put a movie out right away about it, right? And that was the thing. It's like
1937 was the date that the book came out, and then
is it Steinbeck,
right?
And
then after that, yeah, John Steinbeck, and then the movie came out, and then they did it. They did a play of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it has
crazy,
a long
man.
history of a lot of different kind of iterations of this story, right? Different types of things like movies and plays and books.
Yeah, and this just is a good storyline to play off of if you can do it right. I mean, this is probably the last time you'll see it done, probably like this along this lines, because it'll be really hard to do it, I would think, nowadays without offending somebody. Or the storyline you can do with the companionship, but to do it like they're doing and how John Malkovich is acting, you I noticed in the 90s they did have a lot of shows. Even the TV show The Stand, the original Stand, they had a guy that wasn't mentally how did you say it? That I'm supposed to say it proper. Mental disability. Yeah, he didn't have a mental disability, but he played that role, and they did that a lot. I noticed back in the 90s.
He did,
early 90s.
And I mean,
it got bad. Some of them weren't the greatest.
But that's why it's so hard to play those parts. And like, you're right. I think it became like almost like a fashionable thing, to be honest, like for actors to do that, because they felt if they did that, they would get an award. And there was many examples where they did get awards, right? So like, I think that you see a long string of that happening. You're right, especially in the 90s. And they even made a joke about it in that Ben Stiller movie where he says you never go full mental disability, right? Like, because it's true. Well, because like you always have to kind of like in those films, like if you go 200%, like not on the spectrum, like they have to play somewhere on the spectrum. Because if you go too into it, too crazy with it, it looks like you're making fun. You know what I mean? Like it
does.
Ridiculous. And it's hard because even taking up that challenge in and of itself is difficult to do, because like if your acting's bad, it's just going to look like you're making fun of it to begin with, right? Like it's really difficult. That's what I mean. So I gotta say, like, I mean, the only thing I think that you could look at this film and would make you laugh, I think, a little bit at times, is a bit of the voice that John Malkovich puts on. Like, I'm not afraid of that. Voice. Yes, it's the childish thing, not this thing to say like, oh, this guy has mental disability, like, haha, like look at his voice. Like,
but they make a point to say that in the movie.
They do, and like, so I think that's the only thing where like I don't want to say it was like risky for him to do it, because I think he plays it off very well. But I just think that like it's difficult. Like I'm sure for him to keep that, like, you know what I mean? Like if you had to be in that character. Right, even for some of the people playing opposite of him and stuff like that, right? Like it's
not even have a laugh, because he's got to literally channel a 2-year-old. He's basically, and if he's trying to do it that way, and then I'm giving him credit for that, because it was a great way of doing it.
Not everyone has done a good job of that.
No, it's not easy, and it's not easy.
Yeah, no, for sure. So,
all right.
But anyways, okay, so let's get into it here, guys. Let's favorite scenes, and I'll let Jay start us off with this one. This is his pick, so go ahead, Jay. Favorite scene.
I do like our opening scene there, not the one, not the running away from everybody one, but when they finally get the campfire and they have the talk, and you're first starting to get introduced to their characters slowly through themselves. Through Lenny and George, like when they they were getting chased and they stopped by the water, and he had said if anything ever happens, we meet up over here, and trying to let them know and go gather some wood, right? And they had just missed their bus, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they had missed their bus, so they had to spend the night. So I was trying to think. It kind of threw me off of what the time frame was because there was a bus, but the way they were still working in the fields and stuff was still really manual labor, right? So I was trying to think of how far, like what the timeline without looking it up in my head, just trying to think. But I remember like this is a lot southern, more people. It was more manual labor and stuff like that then, right? So I was trying to put that two together, right?
And they were on their way to become like farmhands on a ranch.
Yeah.
And and yeah, like the way that they would live on the ranch for like little pay.
Yeah.
And yeah, they would like work from night till day, you know what I mean? Like early morning, you know what I mean? Like that's a hard day's work that they were putting in, lugging shit around. They didn't have all of like, I think some of the equipment, like the equipment and the tool, you know what I mean? Like the machine.
I'm still watching them do the bales with hand, you know?
That's what I mean. They don't have the machinery really to help out with that, even though it's like still hard. I'm sure now, like I wouldn't know anything about farming, but like I could, you know what I mean? Like I'm sure obviously that's a difficult work, but back then it's probably even more difficult. Like you see the stuff.
I think you're probably more built for it then. You know what I mean? Your body takes it every day, so I'm pretty sure you kind of get used to it after a while, man.
Right.
Like nowadays we're all pussies, and if we can figure a way to sit down and do our job, we will, right? So I mean that's just my opinion. If we can make the simpler we can make it, the better.
That's why men were men. This movie.
So I were men. They were. Hey, there's my Lenny.
There you go.
What's up, bro? But yeah, no, so that first scene when you're sitting there at the campfire and you get to hear a little bit of the story, and he gets into how he wants to tame the rabbits and
the rabbit.
And about
very adamant about taming the rabbits. Yeah, he wants to take care of all the rabbits. Yeah, he's very adamant about that.
But you still don't know what's happened yet. Like, I mean, this is still like opening credits, and if you haven't watched it yet or read the book, you don't know exactly what's going on in that moment.
They throw you right into it, and you don't really know these people's relationship with one another. You see them running at the start just before this when they're on the road. You don't really know what that's all about, and then there's that whole scene with the whole, I guess where they got the name, I guess, for the film with he has a mouse in his pocket. This guy's obsessed with little animals, furry animals, and things like that. And he says, he makes him take the mouse out of his pants. He says, he's not coming with us. You know what I mean? Like, and he makes him like get rid of the mouse. And I guess, like you said, it has a lot to do too with, like you said, like their themes of being misunderstood or different and all this kind of stuff in this
well, it doesn't give you the background. All of a sudden you just see the acting, and you all of a sudden think, okay, what's going on here? And he's got a dead mouse in his pocket, right? And George gets a little pissed off at him. He knows he's got it, but he's not showing. Like,
well, that's why I didn't know if they were foreshadowing too with his obsession with the pets and the fact that he's like smothers things to death in that sense. Like, I don't know if they were trying to like talk about even that early on, because I was trying to figure out the significance of that scene and maybe why it was the title, right? So I was trying to understand, because like even him, like he even with the puppy, like it's kind of like again, it comes up a lot, right? Later on.
He did tell him he'd get him another mouse after, right?
Right.
So after he did throw it up.
I did have a rabbit. It actually died about a year or so ago, unfortunately, but we had it for like
but there was no killing of rabbits in this movie, okay, guys? So that's why I let Nico watch it, because
so like we had it for like 11 years, so the dwarf rabbit. So yeah, it was a long time.
Nico tamed the rabbits, George.
That's right, I did. So yeah, we had it for a long time, but it died like a year or so ago, unfortunately. But that's all right. But that's yes, I did have one, but we got it. I didn't choose to get it. I got given it from my family because they couldn't take care of it at the time. They had another rabbit, and so we gave it a good home for a long time. So yeah,
rabbits are nice. Pet person.
Rabbits are nice. Rabbits are nice, man. They're nice animals. Like if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't get, like, I didn't have a choice. And like I said, we got to kind of adopted it. But if I had to choose, I probably wouldn't have got a dwarf rabbit. They're smaller than regular rabbits. Like I like bigger rabbits with the floppy ears, and you know what I mean. Like I like ones that are full grown. Dwarf rabbits are small; they never grow larger than like this. Like you can hold them in your hands, right? So like they're just a little bit different, I think, in attitude and in terms of like coming out and playing outside of the cage. But there's my talk on rabbits. Yeah.
My nephew had one, man. Growing, his grandparents had one, and his mom had one growing up, and
they're nice animals. They're nice.
They let it run around the house, man. And this thing had fucking huge claws, everything, man. It was crazy. Teeth.
Yeah. So
little pepper chits everywhere.
Yes, they do. Yeah, so I put down one of my favorite scenes was like when they were camping out for the night after they missed that bus, like you were just talking about, pretty much the scene that kind of precedes that, where they missed the bus and then they can't, they're like, I don't know, 5 miles out, or I forgot how many miles he says they're out, but they're like, a ways away from the farm they're supposed to start on. They were supposed to get there that evening, but the bus driver, apparently he said, screwed them over. Like they let them off too early, or they wouldn't drive them to where they had to go. And they missed the bus as they were waiting for the next, I guess, stop for it. And, and then they're camping there, and they're kind of talking about all their plans. They're making up all these like aspirations and dreams and things that they're going to do once they get the money to do them. And like what they're going to, like you said, talking about the rabbits and all that kind of stuff like that. Like, I liked that whole scene that kind of preceded that kind of with that opening bus stop moment. And then
you kind of wonder like what's going to happen when they wake up in the morning. Like, where is it going to go from here at this point, right? Because all they're doing is showing a giant man that talks, and I think it played good because Gary since isn't that tall, so it worked out really good because Malkovich is a pretty tall guy.
Tall and big dude, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But it worked out pretty nice. But you didn't know where these two were going. Like they were total opposites.
Yeah.
And you're like, what's going to happen when they wake up? Like what, Well,
I'd never seen John Malkovich in a role like this before, man. That's why it was weird seeing him play this character. And I already think he's a great actor, but I think like it was weird seeing him play this role just because I've never seen him, because he's always usually like one mode, like of usually pissed off, angry, yelling, like, you know what I mean? Like to see him as this character, which is like the total opposite of like a lot of the characters he seems to play usually, right? Like it was interesting. So but yeah, and then so like just to add to what you said about that scene, I really like that too. And then really honestly, my favorite scene probably out of everything that was fucking sad was when they shoot that old man's dog. That was sad, man. Like and the scene was so well done because the one of the guys they work with, I have his name here. Hold on, the old man. It's played by Ray Walston, but he works on the ranch and he kind of just like cleans up. Like I guess he's like the caretaker. No, he's not the caretaker. I think that's is the black guy the caretaker that works for them. Or
no, he's the barn.
Takes care of the barn.
You're walking me into that one too, because they had a specific name for him.
Well, no, I hear what you're saying. Back then, yeah.
I was like, are you leading me into this one?
We're not in slavery days, okay, Jay? Just so you know, at the time.
Well, yeah, he was the barn guy, yeah.
And they only are given certain jobs, and they're only allowed to do certain things in this part of where they are. Yeah, so yeah, absolutely.
Certain places, everything, yeah.
Right. So he kind of like sweeps up and like he like the old man I'm talking about. He does like small jobs because he only has one arm, right? His hand's gone. He's like he's got like a nub on one of his hands, right? Lost a hand, I'm sure. I don't know. Did they mention if he lost it?
He did. I think it was during he was working back when he was working, and the only thing he could do now is sweep the barn and sweep sweep around.
That's what they mentioned, right? And they mentioned that, and the guy has an old ass dog, and there's a guy on the crew that like hates the fact that like he has this old ass dog and like how it's like, smelly maybe, or like old and kind of limping around or sleeping around all over the place. And I don't know, for whatever reason, they just don't like this dog because they got like lots of new puppies. So he's like, look at this dog, put it out of its misery already. This fucking old ass dog. And
I think it was Curly. No, not Curly. The who was it? It was
Carlson. Richard Reel, that guy. He plays Carlson, but they kind of convince him to take the dog out of his misery. He's like, listen, he's like, oh no, that's all I have. He's old and he's all I have and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, he's like, oh, come on. He's like, no one else here cares about it. Like, I'm just going to do it. You do you a favor. I'll do it for you if you can't do it. Let me take the dog out back and I'll shoot it in the head. And like, I'm like, that's brutal, first of all. Like, and then the guy like clearly doesn't want to do it, but he like looks at everybody else and everybody else is like, whatever. Like, they don't care. Right. So then he's like, okay, all right, go ahead. And then he takes him outside of the barn or their outhouse, whatever, the place that they hang out and sleep or whatever. And then you see the guy just sitting there all sad, and you see the what's his name's character, George, kind of looking at him and seeing if he's going to react or whatever. And then it's just really well done where you don't hear the gunshot for like a whole like 2 minutes almost. Like, they really drag it on because you're expecting him to take him outside and boom, you'd hear like a gunshot. No, but this guy must have took him far away from where they were or something, because you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop in the scene, and all of a sudden you hear a fucking gunshot finally, and then you just like the look of like sadness on his face, man. That was
he brutal. Does that like like he actually hits as soon as the gunshot shoots off and he starts to cry. He gets upset. He turns over. And, yeah, it was.
That scene was brutal. I was just like, I don't know why I'm watching this when I watch that scene, because I was so upset by watching that movie, that scene. That got me the most was that scene, because the old ass man, like that guy killed it in that scene. I gotta say, like he was Candy. He was great in that scene. The Roy Walston, the actor, he just really, really great. And you felt for that guy during that moment, right? That was crazy. So yeah, that was my favorite. Sure. Sad as it was, but that was so brutal.
It was bad, man. I mean, there was some parts of this movie that really touch you, like they in one of those ways where you're sad. You feel for somebody at some point in this. I don't care what kind of person you are, whether you feel bad for somebody like Lenny, George, the old man, Candy. You know what I mean? The barn help. You know what I'm saying? Like that kind of stuff. There's somebody can relate to, and I think the way that they did this in the movie, that they did have some people that relate to each other, and I speak about other scenes, and the one I'm going to bring up right now is where I see that, is where John Malkovich near the end there, not near so much near the end, but he went wandering when the guys went into town, and he ended up in the barn because the light was on, and the black guy was sitting in there, right. And I'm trying to figure, I'm trying to see something, the way these two are treated. And I'm trying to sort of think of how they'd both be treated at that time, in society.
Not that differently. I mean, yes, differently, but
not that differently. It was only because of the color that it made it differently. Exactly. One got to sleep outside the barn and one didn't. What
I meant by that is that they both experienced certain barriers as a result of the way they were.
They can relate.
Yes. So that's what made that a good scene. I had that written down as well. Yeah, that scene was really, really great. But
it still gives me chills thinking about it. Like when I think about it right now, I mean, if I knew word for word, it'd be great. But there wasn't much said, just that the light was on. And so it really does take you for a loop. Like it throws you for a nice loop, and it's interesting, and it's fun to watch, right? And understand, and you become intrigued with that actual scene, I think, personally. And a big thing about some of these scenes is that this music, the music that was in the movie, I noticed that the other day when Julie brought it up and you guys talked about it during that Batman conversation there on Sunday. And so I listened to some of the music while it was being played, and I think because of the type of music that was being played, speaking of the devil, because of the type of music that was played at certain points of this movie, it brought down the reaction level to how you might react in a ignorant way.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, because they kind of had like a sentimental music in the background of like
you can't laugh, and you're gonna feel bad if you laugh, or if you're gonna,
Well, yeah, I mean, like you can't just be like it's
I'm making a good point, am I not?
It's, what are you laughing during this film? You know what I mean? Like,
there's some quotes that I forgot how they sounded like.
There's one that I have written down that's funny. I think you just talked about it, but I can hit on that when we get to the quotes. But yeah, there is a funny one. There is a couple of things. That's the thing too. I don't know if they're playing some of those things to be funny, but they unfortunately sometimes come off funny. You know what I mean? Like there is a couple of, again, just.
But is that us thinking that way, bro? That's the question. Is that us?
Listen, I'm gonna fully admit it because of his like the way his voice is. Unfortunately, there's a couple of things, turns of phrase that he says that sound funny. I don't know if they're meant to be funny. There's only one in particular that I wrote down, but yeah, it's it's just Jay's getting in his emotional bag here tonight. It's crazy, you know. Jay's you know, he's in his feelings. There you go. But go on.
I'm lost. Whatever. But thank you. I am trying to be proper today, guys. I'm trying not to use my hashtag.
He's doing a good job. Hey, come on.
It's a serious movie, man. This is, you know, a serious movie. You can't really, I mean, you can, but you can't. You're not supposed to.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I could talk like I would have in the 90s, early 90s, and probably get in a lot of trouble, but I won't do that, and I won't put Nico on the spot like that. As much as I'd love to. Nico's good, like I was saying to Julie off air, that you're good at pulling me back when I go too far. Like with you've done it long enough.
There's got to be someone to bring it back to earth.
You're like my what did I say? I said you're like the what the fuck's his name?
Shout out for this episode of Late Night Chat. Leaving a better world for your children.
I told you, I said that last week, man. But you're like the Tom to my Bert. You know, sometimes if I go on, I go off. You bring me back and ground me.
You can't have two guys going off like that at all times, because then you're just gonna be two assholes, just fucking talking shit. And listen, there's been times on this show in the past, out of the over hundreds of episodes me and Jay have been on, where it does get like that at times. All right, we just fucking we're both just talking shit. I understand, right? But as long as there's one person to kind of talk the other person down off the ledge, then you know what I mean. That's all that matters.
That's all that matters, man.
Keep each other PC. Because then the other person helps you save face a little bit in that sense, right? You got to have a reactionary person to be like, whoa, you know, the straight man. You got to be like, whoa, I don't know what you're saying. It's a little crazy here, right? Let's move on. You know, like because if you don't have someone recognizing it and then you're just continuing down that road, then that's when you're really.
I'd like to see whenever they bring me onto a show or something, if they bring me somewhere, let's see if they can handle that and pull me back. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Where you met the black guy, the person that works there essentially, right?
You know, this is as far as I'll go. They called him the bar N-word, N-word. Okay?
Yeah. Well, even that's what they. House N-word, all this kind of stuff back in slavery days and stuff like that.
That's why I was trying to figure out how slavery was it back then, and I'm thinking
it wasn't at this period of time, but they still just didn't have a lot of the same rights.
Yeah,
you know, like the civil rights movement type shit, like till like later on. You know what I mean? Like they didn't have a lot of the same rights.
Obviously, I'm not a history buff.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that's why. In this movie, that's why that is the case, right? With that character, right? Like he says, like they weren't allowed to use the same outhouses and shit like that. Like that's a real thing. Like, you know, even with the whole thing with, you know, they had to go back to the back of the bus, right? The Rosa Parks, that whole business, right? Like they could only use they could only go to certain stores. Like, you know what I mean? Like things like that, right? Especially wherever this movie takes place, right? So good cop and very, very bad cop. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, so for sure that was I hear you, man. That was a powerful scene. That was really good, just because, like you said, they were relating, and it's interesting how he treated him. He chose to treat him in that moment, though. The black guy kind of took out some of his hate on white people on him in that moment, and then until he realized that the other guy was not coming at him that way, and that he had a problem, you know what I mean? Like, and he was making fun of his disability in that moment, right? Which is weird. And then he kind of caught himself, and then he kind of was like, you know what I mean? Like, we're not like two
He
different.
goes,
And,
yeah, he
exactly.
goes, I just talk, and he goes, you just talk and whatever. Like he's not really even paying attention. He listens,
Yes.
but he goes off in his own thing after
Yeah.
when he answers you back, right? So I
Yeah.
think it brought down that whole fear level of the white person too.
I thought that
For
was
him.
interesting though, because he was on his guard when he came, and he
Big time.
so fed up. And he said, and obviously because of his mental disability, he didn't actually understand why he wasn't allowed to go out there, because he was like washing himself, right? And he's like, "Why? What are you doing there?" And he's like, "Oh, it's because I'm not allowed with the white guys over there," or whatever. Like he got so pissed about it, right? And he doesn't understand that, and he clearly doesn't understand that. He doesn't understand that, so he's treating him like that because he's kind of fed up of the shit that he has to deal with, right? Because he's black, right? So I understand that. Like there was a lot of, you know what I mean? Like I understand why he lashed out at him in that sense, right? But and then when he realized that he wasn't really a threat to him in that sense, right? But then he kind of said the wrong thing, and he kind of was fucking freaking out because he thought his friend George wasn't
coming back.
Right? Yeah, that was pretty, like, you know what I mean? Like he was almost gonna fucking kill him in that one scene. That was crazy, right? When he said that. So yeah, great scene.
It is.
The other one I had too was the explanation of why they ran out of weed, which I guess is the name of the town that they were in, which I had to look that up. I was like, what the hell? They got run out of this town, I guess weed or county or whatever it was at the start of this. And George is explaining to the main kind of farmhand guy that kind of looks over everybody, it seems like, the main dude in their crew, which is also
like the only way I looked at it is their foreman. I wrote it down as their
foreman, which that guy's great too. That guy's great. That guy who's the foreman plays the foreman. He did a really great job. But he's talking to him once they settle down there and they're working. They've been working for a couple of days. He tells him the whole story about his mental disability, and kind of in the sense like how he paired up with him to begin with, and how he looks after him, and then and really, like, you don't really get that till like 30-40 minutes into the movie, like, honestly, and like why they were on the run at the start, and you don't get that whole explanation, right? And then he goes on to say, like, he grabbed some girl's dress because it was pretty and soft, and then obviously the town folks, they thought that he was trying to rape the girl because the girl started freaking out. And then again, they didn't understand, like, the way his mind works, right? And that he didn't really mean no harm. But unfortunately, if the way you navigate that situation, if you're not aware of that, you could put yourself potentially in harm's way, as we learn later on in the film with this guy, because he's a bigger guy and he doesn't know his own strength. And, like, you know what I mean? So, like, so that is the whole reason that they kind of ran into this situation and hit the road, and actually were working on this farm to begin with. So, like, that whole explanation and lead in of, like, what was happening at the start of the movie, I was happy to have that at that time. And I thought the explanation and the story, and just those two talking back and forth, was a good moment in the film as well.
Well, you can see the trust that he had sort of built up with his boss after a couple of days, because I mean, this is like a crew that he went to work on. He said he helped out, and during that whole scene, you're watching Lenny during that conversation. At times, you're watching Lenny in the background hauling these bales of bags of yarn, hay, in dirt and stuff, into the trucks or the wagons that they had there. And there's like these, you watch the two people struggling to try to lift it up onto the truck, and he just throws it over his shoulder, and then one throws it over them. At one point, he's like, get out of my way, guys. He's like doing double the work, and they can't keep up with him,
right?
Because of his. But this is during that scene when they're having that talk that you're mentioning, where he actually opened up to somebody about why he's got Lenny too as well, right?
It was a lot of context to the situation, which we really needed as viewers of the film, like, at that point in time. So it was a really great scene in that sense. And also just his explanation of how he ended up with him, the whole story about how when he first came across him, he told him to jump in the river or whatever, and then he, like, almost drowned because he didn't know how to swim. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he just said, like, the fact
do anything for me, basically.
He just listens to him. Like, he hangs on every word this guy has to says, and like the fact that he he's like, you know what I mean? Like he'll just do whatever he says. And like, he kind of, you know what I mean? Like he doesn't even care about as well. He doesn't think of himself or anything like that. He just kind of like, you know, that's what was interesting. Cause he was kind of describing the way his mind works to this guy, right? To another onlooker to the situation, and why he took him under his wing, and why he feels like, you know, a kinship to this guy. Right. So like, that's why that was a really good moment. Like, cause I myself was wondering up to that point, right? And I think for me, as a result, that's what affected the film for me at the start, where I felt it was slow and I couldn't really get into it the first little bit, is because I didn't really, I think, have that context. But I think if I were to rewatch this movie, I would have a new appreciation for the first little bit. Although it is slow, I still find like once you understand what's going on, it's not that it was confusing. It's just they didn't give you that. They didn't give you that moment. Like it, and the way that they did it, where they kind of told you that stuff after, I think was more effective in the long run.
Oh, like in the long run, yeah.
Yeah, yes.
It made for a great movie. It actually made you want to keep watching.
Yes. Well, that's why it was a little jarring at first. And I was like, I don't know where it's like, you know, where this movie is going or whatever. I'm going to trust, you know, the judgment of Jay here in this pick, and, you know, knowing that it's such a classic and whatever else. But I'm telling you, the first like 15, 20 minutes or so, I was just like, I don't know about this. And then I was like, once they got to the ranch, like I said, I was really into it by that point.
Yeah. And you know, yeah, I had a feeling you'd like it if I did decide to pick it. I just thought I'd throw you off a bit, because I don't think we've ever done one with John Malkovich or anything, or, you know, we've talked about doing one, haven't we?
Yeah.
We never did do one,
yet, right? I don't think, as of yet. No. Anything else you have for scenes though, or?
You know, like when they're getting interviewed by the boss at the barn. And, you know, they're always wanting Lenny to answer the questions, but George does all the answers. And, you know, he tells him why he doesn't do any of the talking, and because he got kicked by they tell him he got kicked by a mule when he was young in the head, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, he even comes out after that scene and says, like, they thought that originally he had a stake in it too, that he was just using him to use his money and steal his money from him because he was slow, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, obviously that wasn't the point, right? That wasn't the whole fact of everything. Like, they didn't get it. They couldn't understand why somebody would be that's a big touchy part for me too. It's like, why could somebody be friends with somebody like that, you know, and care about somebody like that? But they don't know people's lives, you know what I mean? They don't know people's life stories. They don't know why and what led them to that situation. So that really, you know, sticks out with me a lot, because I understand those things as much as people, you know, that know me might not think that. I do pay attention to those types of things.
Right.
So like I said, maybe this is where, like, there's a lot of scenes that were very touching, like meaningful to me.
Well, I feel you can really tell a lot about a person and how they would treat somebody like that. Just that's all I would need to know, right? You know what I mean? Like, if you met somebody that kind of like just treated somebody with a mental disability like shit for no reason, like, you know what I mean? Like, and I know, like, depending on what the disability is and all that, like, you know, sometimes people's patience is not great either in that sense. And I understand that's like a real thing. I think, you know, most people have probably experienced that kind of stuff where, you know what I mean? Like, you don't want to, you're assessing the situation. You don't want to come off poorly, and you don't want to kind of like mistreat the person either, but there's only so much, you know what I mean? Like, it sometimes, like, you know,
say,
what's that?
That you can do or say.
Yeah, sometimes, unfortunately, that's just the situation. And it's like, you know what I mean? You have to have a lot of patience sometimes in those situations, when sometimes interacting with people with certain disabilities in that sense, right? But so, you know, that's what I mean. So, but I think that's it's anybody who treats people, you know, just like some of the people treated him in this film, like, just terrible. You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
I mean, that was another scene too I almost forgot about. But when Curly, the boss's son, wanted to go at him and was punching him, he just stood there like a gentle giant until he couldn't take no more, until George actually said something.
Yes.
Right. And then he crushes the hand, dude. That was crazy. Like, how much power you got? You could be John. Then that's when I wanted to become John Malkovich, man.
Yes. But then lastly, all I had pretty much here was again, and then the ending. Ending's tragic. I mean, the ending, of course, is one of the best scenes because, and this is why I kind of hinted at for a larger discussion if you had about it at the start when you're talking about it, is like the way I looked at it was, and again, I don't want to say it in these terms almost because like it's I guess sounds bad, but he did somewhat become a burden in his life and he felt like he didn't really have many choices in that moment. I feel like so basically George ends up shooting him in the back of the head after he tracks him down at that spot he told him to run off to after he accidentally kills a girl that worked on the ranch, who's not works, she was the wife of the owner's son. Yeah. And she was always a little flirtatious and stuff like that, but she was also coming from it where she was not. I mean, she was
say that.
It was one of those situations though that you could tell that the husband was a piece of shit, possibly like abusive and kind of like didn't let her do anything. Right. This is a time where she's like, you know, your place, like you stay at home, you don't do it. You know what I mean? Like that kind of like mentality. So she was very sheltered and she was kind of like maybe some of the reason why she was promiscuous or at least came off that way is because she had no interactions with other men or whatever, right? So like I said, I know there was like that whole other conversation whether or not, you know, she was looking for trouble, or some scenes she certainly was. And
seems like it.
Yeah, so I don't think she did herself any favors. But if you had to somewhat relate and understand her side of things, that's why I was trying to say like this is probably where that's coming from in her defense, right? But
I don't even know if I can give her defense because I think she knew what his problem was and she still kind of took advantage of it.
Well, that's a whole other thing. I think
we can get into a crazy topic there.
Yeah, I think it's gonna come up again. But anyways, he ended up killing her and he ran away to the spot that JT talked about that he told him to go hide in at the start of the film if he ever got into trouble where they were headed. And, you know, and he actually made it there. He made it close to the spot anyways. Like he made it. Like, he was going through like the little lake or river or whatever when he saw him. Right. And it was just like down a little farther. So George meets him there and then he kind of gets him to turn his back and they do their whole thing again where he's like looking, you know, out and like talking about all their like ambitions, dreams and everything else and the rabbits, and kind of made him look off in the distance. And then he took out the gun and shot him in the back of the head. Now, and that was pretty much where the movie ended, right? Like that was pretty sad. It was tragic. It sucked that it had to come to that, but all these folks were like wanted blood. Like they were chasing him like an angry fucking mob. Yeah. And this guy wanted some sort of a life for himself too. Like he was tired of running. He was tired of being on the road. He was tired of a lot of this shit, right? And he knew that this guy was going to get hung or killed or whatever else was going to happen to him at that time. Like who the hell knows what these guys were going to do to him. Right. I think they were taking the law into their own hands at that point.
Well, right. At that point. Yeah, for sure.
Right. So in a way, he kind of was looking out for him and putting him out of his misery. But I also feel like it was kind of a burden to him at this point, that guy, you know what I mean? Like I'm saying, like he always looked out for him and in his own way. That was probably him looking out for him in that moment, Jay. But like my interpretation was like that would be very difficult. And I think he was just tired. Like, you know what I mean? Like he couldn't, like, you know what I mean? Like I think he was also unburdening himself and him of like this whole situation because they were not doing well together, these two. Like this is not, how many times is he going to get in trouble like this, right? Like you want to think that it's like, you know what I mean? Like he's doing the right thing in that moment. But I think that there's a little bit of that kind of, I would think anyways, that's my interpretation of it. Like,
yeah. No, I'm going to add something. I'm just adding something to an unanswerable question now.
Yes.
I'm just writing it down because you brought up something and I want to save it for later until that part, right? Sure.
But yes, great ending. Everything leading up to that scene was pretty great. Like I didn't know what was going to happen.
It was like pure old Yeller at the end, eh?
Yeah, I didn't know what was going to happen. Yeah, it was sad, man. It was really sad, that moment. And then it kind of just
beautiful at the same time, honestly, dude, because if it was somebody else that did it, I don't think it would have been so beautiful. You know what I mean? In that sense, and as a director, as let's say, as somebody, a producer who's putting something together, you know, what other, even somebody to write a book and a book being written like that. And if it just ends like that, wouldn't it drive you nuts? I mean, after you get the story and stuff like that, but wouldn't it, you know, just smack that, maybe put you into tears at that last little bit of the book, you know.
Yep.
And it's like, you
Yeah.
cocksucker, and then
As you mentioned,
I
this was a
finished.
novella, which those
Yeah.
are small books. They're not really long, and
No. Yeah.
and yeah. So that's. I mean, I guess as long as you stick to the main themes of this movie, though. But that's what was kind of great about it, is that there was so much character development and familiar themes in this story. And if that was based on just a small novella and they actually pulled all that out of it, like, that just goes to show you how well written that was, because this has been like something that people have built upon and have made into plays and films, and you know what I mean? Like, so like
It makes you want to read the book almost, I feel like.
it does. Yeah. It was really powerful, man. Yeah, it was really great. So
And
anything
I don't
else?
want to read. I
Yeah.
don't ever want to read. So if it's making me want to pick it up, it
Right.
actually made me more this time than I think any other time.
Anything else for scenes that you have though written down?
No, pretty much we
Covered the
pretty
main.
much main
Yeah.
ones, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
They were all great scenes. I mean, and everything. It's pretty, you know, to the
Yes.
point where
The story beats are, yeah. Those are the main ones for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So getting into favorite quotes now. Like Jay mentioned this to me before the start of this. They don't have many. This is going to be quicker than usual for this one, because like this is, again, I think a lot of scenes and like just the character, like I was just saying, like there's not really a lot of quotables in this. Like there's not really any quick like one-liners. There's not even like
there's quotes, but they're not
quotes.
I don't think they're proper.
Their whole
Paragraphs.
Conversations that they're having between one another. Yeah, exactly. So it's like not you know, they're like monologues and things like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like they like kind of like, you know what I mean? Like so it's
parts
hard.
of the scene.
It's hard to pull like quotes from this, like unless you were going to write down the whole thing, which I didn't. So I'll just start off by saying what Jay mentioned is that scene where the guy, when you get to the ranch, asks him, he's like, what are you selling? What's your stake in this thing? Like, that's what I wrote down. Like that whole scene where he kind of is trying to figure him out. And if he's ripping off this guy, right? Because he says, oh, he's the quiet type. And then the quote of him saying, yeah, he got kicked in the head by a horse when he was a kid, or a mule, I guess. Or I think he wrote horse. I wrote horse down. So I think that's what he said. And that's what he's trying to blame on for his mental disability. He's trying to say was the issue with him. And then when they go outside, John Malkovich, Lenny's like, I wasn't kicked in the head with no horse, was I, George? Like, then he basically just says, like, you know, it'd be a damn good thing if you was, or whatever. Like, if that was like you know what I mean? So that whole exchange between them, that's what I mean. Like, it was, I'm not saying you're not allowed to crack a smile during those moments. They're more endearing than anything. You know what I mean? They're more like you feel like it's not a funny moment, but it's like a nice moment between the two, because you gotta have some levity to that situation. They gotta guys. That's what I mean. Like he's kind of like almost like kind of like playing along with the fact that he thinks or says that, right? Like in that moment. So like that's what I mean. Like you got to kind of act that way a little bit. Like, you know, it's a poor choice of words, I guess, but in a way you got to dumb it down a little bit too, as the person who is conversating with them. You know what I mean? Like you got
to bring yourself down to their level. It's true. It's not like you're not dumbing yourself down. You're bringing yourself down to their mental.
Yes. You're trying to relate.
Capacity,
exactly. Yeah. That's what I mean. I already knew that would be a poor choice of words, but what I'm trying to say is that yeah, that's what they're trying to convey, I think, in that scene, is that, you know what I mean? Like he takes it literally, and he has to explain, I wish that was the case, that I would have to like go and lie for you or whatever else,
all the time. Yeah. No, but instead of basically saying you were born like that, right? I mean,
yeah, because people don't understand, and you know, even he really doesn't understand the full like nature of it either. He doesn't, right?
He just knows he's a gentle giant.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, that's what I had down for one of my quotes there.
No, that's good. It's like when I think it's around in the same scene too, where because he said he likes to tell people, he tells people just for the sake of telling people that he's his cousin, right?
Oh yeah, he says that too after,
and he goes, that was a lie. If I was a relative of yours, that's what George says. If I was a relative, I'd shoot myself, right? That's so. See, he'll talk like that to him personally, to Lenny, when nobody else is around. I've noticed too. Like, he doesn't treat him like an idiot. in front of people. He treats them like a normal person, which
and yeah, exactly.
You get it. You got to give him credit for that, right?
Yeah, like, it's quality. Yeah, no, it's he, you know what I mean? And like he warns him and he tries to steer him in the right direction. But again, like even when it came to that woman, but there's only so much he could do. And that's what I mean. Those moments where he was branching out and playing, playing baseball, whatever. So they're playing ball or horseshoes. They were having the tournament. And he's able to do that. And he has to go sit in the barn and then he wanted to go out for beers with the boys that one night, the workers. And that's when that whole thing with him and the black. Yeah. So that's what I mean. Like you could tell he was trying to have some normalcy as well in his life where he didn't have to be there with him at all times, but he was also trying to like advise him, like what to do when he was not around. So like he couldn't protect him at all times. So I think like it was inevitable the direction that this went in, unfortunately, right? You know what I mean? Like it was kind of like, you know what I mean? Like it was, you could see it was in the car. I knew that something was going to happen in this movie. You could tell, like, I'm like, yeah,
it was leading up to something not nice.
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah,
but it was bracing you for it too, though, on the way.
Yes,
I believe.
Yeah.
Right. So, but it's like the boss there, Slim. I think that's what his name was. Slim was one of the guys that he worked with. Not the old boss,
John Terry. Yeah,
the guy that he actually talked to when because they had that conversation that you had, and there was one line that stood out there, and I'm surprised that it stood out as much as it did, but it said a guy don't need no sense to be a nice fellow, right? Like he doesn't need to be smart or doesn't have to have any brains to be a nice fellow, right? And that was the one line that kind of stood out for me because George was trying to explain to him, that he's not all there, and he's trying to let them know, but he's a hard worker and he works twice as hard as everybody else, and he's as strong as a bull, sort of thing, right? So that line stood out to me because then at that time you knew that there was people out there that kind of understood. Right. You know what I mean? It was slowly. The world was probably slowly changing at that time too, and that kind of depicted it pretty good in that sense, that scene. Because you knew that he, at that moment, maybe George didn't feel so alone when it came to Lenny, right? Because you got to remember, the guys had to feel alone and taking care of this kid for since the kid's aunt died, right? He said he would take care of him, right? So, I mean, we didn't add that context, but that's really
that's why he got stuck with him. Yeah, that's right.
They weren't really family though. They weren't actually cousins, right? They were just. He was good to the lady. I guess he worked at the lady's place. Yeah. And when she passed, he took care of her.
Right.
And that was another part of the, not just because he told him to jump in the river, but that was part of the story that you had told. But yeah, that was a line that stood out to me, like a one-liner. I know.
Yes.
I'm trying to stay away from the Lenny one-liners.
Listen, you could just say them.
I know.
I mean, here I'll shoot you some bail. I got one written down here. It's when he met. Now this guy's like, now he chooses to take his sweater off. That's why I was getting hot there. That's why I turned on the fan. No, it was when he met the black guy there. The part that I did laugh at because of the way he delivered the line, admittingly, was when he said, "Yeah, everybody went into town. I seen your light." What I mean? When he says, "I seen your light," like he repeats it, like because he's like, "What are you doing here? Like, get out of here! Like, what are you doing? This is my space. Get the hell out of here!" Right? And he's like, and he just repeated himself about, "I seen your light. I seen your light." Yeah. Just that line, I like that. I thought that was funny because like he's so innocent and he doesn't know any better. And he just said, "Your light was on, so I came over to say hello." And he doesn't understand that this guy's showing like he's fed up because he has nowhere to his own. Like he has to stay in there. So he's like, "How dare you invade my privacy, like my spot that I have to stay."
The only spot I have, basically.
Right. So that line was pretty good. But like you said, to your point about his voice or whatever, when he said that about "I seen your light, I seen your light," I thought it was nice that line. I like that. And also
Go on. No, because you probably have something with that too.
And then that was the only one I had of Lenny's really that I wrote down. And the last one I have here is the old man when he's talking about when the scene we didn't talk about is when he comes in on the plan. He hears George and Lenny talking about their plan to raise enough money to go and start their own kind of farming situation with the animals or whatever else when they leave there.
Yeah.
And then the old man comes out and he says, hey, I'm useless around here. I got the stump for a hand. Like he has no hand, like he's old. And then he says, I wish someone would shoot me. He's they'll can me and I'll have no place to go. Like when he kind of just lets them know, he's like, I wish someone would shoot me because he's like, did you see what they did to my dog? That whole and then he's like, I wish someone would do that to me and put me out of my misery because I know when I'm done. Yeah, well, it's true.
It's true. He can do nothing.
He's like, I can barely do anything now. I'm sweeping. I get $50 a month or something. Once we're at the end, I have $300 saved. Let me pitch in and get in on this with you guys, or 250 or whatever he said he had. And we'll take all our money together because it was $600 they needed to like own this property.
For 10 acres, bro.
For 10 acres. Yeah. I know,
could you imagine?
Great. And they're so but then when that happened, I'm like, oh my God, now this guy is stuck with this old man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I know it's terrible to say, but I'm like, his guy is just taking so much on. Like I said, there's some traits.
Couldn't say no.
There's some traits to this guy remind me of you, Jam. Like this guy's taking all this shit on. I'm like, I'm just feeling for the guy. I'm like, how's this guy gonna handle all this? Like, you know what I mean? He takes on so much, but he's such a good soul. But you could even tell he's like, I don't know. Like at first he's like, you know what I mean? Oh yeah, we're just talking about this plan we have. And the guy's like, hey, let me get in on that. And it's like this group of misfits, like kind of like, you know what I mean? I'm just like, oh my God, now this old man's gonna come with them. Like I just felt for him a little bit in that moment. I'm just like, because he's right. Like, and like, I'm just saying, why should that all fall on his shoulders? Right? Like it seemed like it's a big responsibility to take on because now this guy is gonna come with them. He never invited the guy. He kind of just said, listen, I'm screwed here. Like my life is over. If you're gonna get rid of me, they're gonna fucking, you know what I mean? They're gonna can me, then I'm gonna be out of a job, then I'm just gonna die. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was just like, done. Brutal. What a brutal ass like situation, right? I'm just like, this is so yeah, that's that that line about they're gonna shoot me, they're gonna can me, and they're gonna shoot me. Like, did you see what happened to my dog? Like that whole part, I'm like, oh my God. That's why that old man between those two scenes, I was like, that guy's excellent. Like, I'm just like, I hated that they brought it back to. I thought that would be it with the dog. Then he talks about how useless he is. And I'm just like, oh my God. I felt so bad, man. That's what I mean. I said,
but he played it right. Like he played the part good too, right? Like I mean, I don't know if that's how they depicted in the book. I mean, they pretty much they said that they had gone pretty good with the storyline in that sense with the people. But I mean, I don't know how well they portray that the old guy in the book or whatever. But I mean, like I said, I'd really like to fucking what I'd like to know what the fuck happened, right?
Yes.
Like this book, I'd like to read it.
I only said it really. It reminded me of you in that sense because God bless you. You're a person that cares about a lot of people, and I think you take on a lot more than you can handle sometimes as a result, right? Like I think you take on a lot of, you know what I mean? Like you got a lot of weight on those shoulders, or you take on a lot of people and help a lot of people out in that sense, right? So that's what I meant. I meant it not in a bad way whatsoever, but I know. You have to understand the toll that sometimes, like, you know what I mean? Like that shit can take on an individual.
We've talked about this. Yeah, I know.
Right. So anyways, but yes, go on. Anything else you had for quotes though? That's all I had.
I had therapy moments and stuff after. I had it with Julie, and now maybe you next. Now after this movie, I'm gonna have a therapy session afterwards. Fuck.
I heard it was an extensive.
No, it was all right. No, she took care of me that night. She was good. What
was Lenny's last word in the end? Yeah, he wants to tend to the rabbits. Yeah.
Well, he was talking about that's what he was doing. He was reading he was telling him the story about, that's all he asked him. He wanted to hear about what they're gonna do with the property and stuff. And then as he's telling him that was it, man. Poor guy. But I like ketchup with my beans, George.
Yes.
Yes. And then George got mad because he didn't have no ketchup.
Yeah.
I don't want no ketchup. I would leave all the ketchup for you, George.
Yeah.
Right. And he goes, you can, did he say squirt it all over himself or something, like just to make it a joke? Yeah. I think that's what he said. He's going to you can squirt it all over yourself.
You
Like
can
he
tell
was
there were
funny.
times that he tested George's patience too, and he kind of told him straight. Like that's what I mean. There was a few times where he had to put his foot down. He's like, "Okay, enough of this." Like even with the dog, like hiding the dog or whatever. Just like he's like, "There's no dog here." The best is when he tricked them though, and he's like, "Ah," he's like he pretended like he was holding a dog.
Yeah. There's no George here. I mean, there's no dog here, George. And then he goes, see,
Yeah.
yeah. That was just like he was like a big kid, man. And those parts made you just smile and laugh, right?
Yeah.
Because you also know it's John Malkovich acting that part, so he's doing a good part. Like, I mean, for him to take on a role like this, you got to be a good actor. I mean, you can't just do it and try.
To your point about that, there's the other movie where the Robin Williams, is it Jack? The one where is it Jack? I forgot the name of it. There's one where he has the disease where he's basically a grown man, but he has like the mind of a child. I guess a disability or it is. I don't know what it was. Like whether I think I only watched it once when I was younger, but like I don't remember. And Robin Williams is a great actor. I don't remember that being so good, that movie. I may be wrong. I might have to go back and rewatch it, but I don't remember it being that great because like that is kind of how he had to act in that film, is like a kid. And you would think Robin Williams would do a good job of that. So maybe I'm off base with that. I just don't remember that being great. It's a risky role, man. It really is. And
So
like
I
said,
playing a woman as a man.
as not how non-PC, but funny it was at the time that scene is in Tropic Thunder where they talk about this. That is what they're referring to when they talk about this in that movie, though, is the fact that like there was so many movies in Hollywood of actors doing that kind of stuff back then because they were going for awards. Right? There's a lot of people like what's the
that's how you'd win your real award if you can be totally a different person, like Louis Anderson when he played just right, the woman and his mother. He played he said he
that's how he won an award though, because he channeled like his mother and his it's crazy, right? But that's what I mean. But not everybody can relate to that kind of stuff. I mean, if you
can pull it off,
yes, exactly, right? Because you got to emulate somebody and have the respect for like there's those people, you gotta respect that, like, you know what I mean, and emulate that person, right? There's the people that do that Elephant Man stuff on Broadway and stuff like that. You know, Bradley Cooper was playing the Elephant Man for a while there, Bradley Cooper the actor, and he went on the Howard Stern show, and he was trying to get him to do the voice and stuff like that. But of course, when he was trying to get him to do it, he was afraid because he's representing that actual person, like he didn't want it to come off like, because he knew they were laughing about it because the voice is kind of ridiculous, right? But like, he wanted to not disrespect the material or the person or the people that had that affliction though, right? By doing it. So like I remember the interview, like they were laughing about it, but then he's like, nah, man, I can't do it. Like, you know what I mean? And like Howard Stern, he had to do it. He had to do the voice because he was like, okay, you're not going to do it. Then I'm going to do my Elephant Man. Right. And he started laughing. He's like, actually, that's pretty good. Like he was just like, you actually did a pretty good job. But it's true. Like to pull that off, man, like it's not an easy task. Like I know we've said that more than once. So we're running into the ground at this point, but I can't honestly, I can't stress that enough, man. It's at times even I was questioning whether or not he was doing a good job in this movie. I was like, is he doing a good job, or I don't know, man. So it's interesting to see it nowadays in that sense.
Yeah, it is. It's really, and it's like I said, if you can do it still and you can pull it off, then all the best. And if you're doing it as a learning thing and as a moment, then even better, right? Like, I mean, I hope that, he learned from it too, in that sense, like as an actor. So
yes. Anything else you have for
quotes? That man, he's as strong as a bull. Oh, how many puppies did you bitch have? What's his name? Yeah. Those little one-liners were kind of cool, right? Because you forget how people would talk back then. Yeah. I mean, I can say that, right?
That was George, good.
Ask the man if you can have one of his puppies. Right?
That's right. Yeah. After he sees the puppies and they get on the back of that wagon or whatever as he's going through the fields. Yeah.
He wants one bad, man.
Yeah.
At that point, right? Like
he does.
He's like you said, he's just a genuine guy, man.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So those are our quotes for the film. But again, as we mentioned, lots of great dialogue between the characters in here. We probably didn't capture a lot of the moments through a few of our quotes here today. So definitely check out the movie and see for yourself. All right, Jay, favorite performer Favorite performance of the film here for this one?
Well, my favorite. This was hard, man, for me because I like the way John Malkovich played Lenny, obviously, and now that I'm older and I can understand it better. But like you said, I felt like I related more to George there in that sense, as opposed to that. Like so that character really drew me in. Gary Sinise character, George, I think for me, for best performance in that, with any of the interactions, I think he was just the better of the two in my point of view. Just because the way I felt. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not taking nothing away from Malkovich for this, but I just I related a lot better to George. So I think that he was my favorite you said performer, right?
Yeah. Performance. Your favorite performance? Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was to be honest with you, out of all, I mean, you can make an argument for each person, like in their own little sense, but no, like I said, because I think it's more of I felt in that sense the way he feels, maybe the burden and stuff like that. I mean, you kept hitting it when you brought it up just a little while ago, so I'm not going to run my mouth with it, but it's true. Yeah, I kind of understood that. You couldn't just let somebody after he couldn't let somebody after his aunt dies, his only caretaker died, just end up in a fucking mental institute cage, right, back then.
Yes. Yeah, it was not going to end well for him either way at that point when he decided. No, that was,
It was just nice of him to actually take that on as a person.
Yeah.
But it was nice.
I agree with you. I agree. Yeah. Gary Sinise for sure. Yeah. And that was hard for me too, because I was trying to think if I was going to give it to Malkovich or not. Because it is obviously the more difficult, I would say, out of both of these roles, right? And they're the two main performers in the film. So, but yeah, he was just excellent, I thought, in this movie, and he had a lot of the better moments, I think, and just through facial expressions, just by even staring at people during certain scenes, the way that people treated him or acted, or his facial expressions, or the way that he talked to him, or they kind of the whole telling the story about how he met him, like those moments, I made him my favorite performance in this film. Like those were I think he just had better moments in the film overall. You know what I mean? Because even of the nature of the character that John Malkovich had to play, he didn't really have as much. You know what I mean? Like moments, even lines of dialogue or kind of scenes with people. Because even in the main scenes with George's character where he wasn't around, there was a lot of those scenes too, where it was just him opposite other actors, right? A lot of the scenes George had to go off and do on his own, or he ran into the woman or the black guy that was working there. And again, I think they were using that as parallels for you to compare how women were treated then, how black people were treated then, how he was treated then, right? And kind of that was it was a man's world type situation, right? It really was these guys.
Yeah, that's when the white man was cool. Nowadays we're not. No.
Yeah, no. But you know what I mean? That's no, but that's
it's the truth, bro.
That's what I mean. That's kind of where you had, he shined in those moments, but he only had so much to play off of as that character, really, to go around. You know what I mean? He
for each person.
Yeah. So I went with Gary Sinise too. Your fucking Lieutenant Dan there. I had to go with him. Yeah, just great. This is probably the best thing I've ever seen him in. Actually, I thought this was my favorite performance I've ever seen of his. I'd never seen this movie. I thought he was great in this because as soon as I started watching it, I was like, oh, it's fucking Lieutenant Dan, right? And I think he did a great job. Yeah, I agree with you, Jay. I think it was him as well for favorite performance. Okay, next up we got favorite cameo. I wrote down this guy, The fucking bus driver, Mark Boone Jr. as the bus driver, who's Bobby from
Yeah, that was
Sons of
another
Anarchy.
category for me.
I
Yeah.
actually didn't catch that one, to be honest with you, because Christina actually watched this movie too with me, and she has also never seen it. And she was surprised she hadn't seen it because she's a huge John Malkovich fan, so she enjoyed it as well.
You know, too many people hear this one when they think of John Malkovich, either, right?
Right. And yeah, we had to. I think at the end of the credits, or I was looking it up on IMDb, or she was, and she caught that was him at the start, because I was just like, when I remember,
It looks so familiar, yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't know. So ultimately, I had to give him the cameo because he was just literally in that one bus scene at the start of the film, and I know him from Sons of Anarchy probably the best, but I've seen him in other things too. He actually, I think, he was either that guy or my cameo in another film that we did too. I forgot which one it was, but I think I picked him before in this category or another category on our movie reviews as well. I can't remember what movie it was, but I'm pretty certain that I've put him in one of the categories before this. So there you go. That was my favorite cameo in this film. How about you, Jay?
My cameo for short periods in this one was the stable buck. What's his name? His part in that little, just that couple scenes that he has, I think were very pivotal. And then his crooks, John Morton. That's the stable buck.
Oh yes,
right?
Yes.
Yeah, I took him. Yeah, because I seen him. I've also seen him in other things, but I mean, I think his performance in there was really necessary at that, to kind of, like I said, to kind of depict that time that they were living, and that they weren't too far off, in a sense, like the way they were treated.
Yeah.
Except, one got to live outside the barn instead of in the barn. You know what I mean? Like, really, that's about it. Other than that, if they knew how slow he was and whatever, they probably would have never, treated him like that, right? Yeah. So I picked. That's who I picked for my cameo, right? Because I think that it was an important performance in the film.
It was.
So
yeah, and I've also seen him in other things as well. That guy, I know he's good. Yeah.
You forget how old these guys are, right?
He's young here, though. He's pretty young here.
This is 20 years old, this fucking movie now, right?
Yeah. It is.
Fuck, man. I hate feeling old.
Any of these older movies that we do now are going to be like this, though. So there you go. All right. So that was favorite cameo. Overacting award. So which one did you do? So that just went back to you. So this is you now.
My overacting award went to Curly.
Same.
Yeah. I can't stand that other prick.
Casey Simasco. Yeah, that is the actor's name. Yeah, such a dick, and he's over the top right from the start. His being pissed off wasn't believable. Like, it was just over the top and not believable. Like, it was just like, calm down, man. Like, this guy, like,
has he done anything since?
I don't know, but as soon as he showed up on the scene, I was like, I don't like this guy. And then I was like, oh yeah, you could tell the caliber of actors that were with him in that scene. Like, it was just like, yeah, this guy doesn't know what he's doing compared to these guys. Like, it was so apparent, in every scene that he was doing it. Yeah, it was too much, man.
He's a big actor. Now that I look it up, I didn't even realize who that was.
Yeah,
he might have overacted there, but fuck, bro, he's done a lot of things, man.
Sure,
he's done everything from fucking. I just noticed that now. Back to the Future, Young Guns, Stand By Me.
Yeah, he wasn't good in this.
No, I'll tell you that much. I think he played John Kennedy in one of the movies too.
You have, I see that in his IMDb photo here.
Yeah, man.
I have the same one. Yeah, we got the same one on that category as well. Because I was just like, he was one of the first. He's the first name I wrote down, and I never went back to it after that.
I think that's gonna change my answer to something too, man. After that might just change it now.
Here we go. This is the next category. I also gave it to him. I don't know if that's what you're gonna say, but I also
No.
worst performance.
Yeah. That's what I had. I question marked it because I wanted to see if there's anything else, anybody else that I could think of. Right?
I never circled back to it. I never thought it. Because, like I said, everybody else was pretty good. Like I said, the even the woman, Sherilyn Fenn, the actress, Richard Reel was good. You said Joe Morton, John Terry is Slim. Ray Walston is Candy. Obviously, not going to put Malkovich or you know what I mean. Gary Sinise there. Yeah, no, I had to go to this guy. This guy was the worst like performance.
He played his role the worst, I think. I mean, unless that's the way he was supposed to.
I don't know. He was
spoiled kid.
Listen, if you wanted someone to be awful and for you not to like that character, which I think was the point of that character, then yes, maybe he was successful in that sense. I just, I still had to give it to him because he was probably, I just don't think he did a great job either, to be honest with you. I just thought he was not very believable, like in those scenes, like when he was really pissed off, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think he was a little over the top. And as we mentioned, guys, overacting doesn't always translate to a bad performance, but I think in this sense, sometimes it does. In this sense, for me, and apparently Jay as well, it was both for us guys. So,
well, I mean, I even his wife, I didn't like her performance that great too, but
no, I think she played that good. I mean, that's
the way she was supposed to. I just didn't like that cocky bitchness and like that spoiled white chick in her. You know what I mean?
Yeah. See, but in that sense, I could separate that you weren't supposed to like her and her performance away from the character
type of acting.
Yeah, we're in this with this guy. I didn't feel that. Like, I didn't feel like, oh, this guy's doing such a good job.
Yeah, he looked like a young actor, just like a corny young actor, right?
I think he was a little out of his league in those scenes with those guys, right? Because he's acting opposite Malkovich and even the old dude. Have you seen that Ray Walston? Like that guy, is towards the ends of his life. This guy's been an actor for fucking, like, I don't know, 70 years probably at that point. You know what I mean? Like, so I think he was just a little bit out of his league. It says that he started acting, this guy, in the 1980s, right? So, I mean, this was probably a big deal for him to get this part, right? So I can see that he's had a long career still up till now. But if I had to guess, you know what I mean? I think they could have casted someone much better in that role, personally.
Oh, for Curly,
yeah,
for sure.
Okay, so that was overacting, and now it's and worst performance, and then back over to Jay for that guy award.
That guy picked Mark Boone because I knew him from somewhere. I just because of the style of just his face, right? I knew him, and I had to look him up. That's who I picked, right? It was I had a toss up between two at this one, but I don't know what your second one is, but because I at first I didn't know who he was, even though but this with Mark Boone, he was only in that little part with the bus driver, so I was like, okay, This is perfect for that guy because I'm like, who the fuck was that guy?
I went with Richard Ryle.
Which one?
Who's the guy that forced him to shoot the dog? Like he's pretty young here too. Carlson is who he plays. He's the guy who goes and shoots the dog. Like he's the one that takes the dog and shoots.
Oh, the old man. Yeah.
He's been in lots of things. Like I recognized him right away. Out of everybody there, I recognized him.
Well,
before anybody. I now looking at it, like I even know the Slim guy. Like I know that actor, but at the time when I was watching it, I couldn't place where I knew him from. But this guy, I was like, oh, it's that guy. And I knew right away that I seen him in so many other things. So yeah, that was for me. I could also went with Bobby ultimately because I never remember that actor's name, but I had to go with cameo with him because I didn't have anybody else. I thought that fit the bill for that one. So, I picked this guy, the Richard Ryle guy. He's been a lot of things that I've seen.
I mean, there's everybody in this film is like, now that you look at them and now that I'm just clicking on IMDb and just to see, I mean, half these people in other films, right? Even Curly's wife, man, she's been in other films too, right? Like she was in Goliath series. She's still hot too.
Been in tons of things.
Her age.
She's been in tons of things. I mean, she looks great in this movie. Don't get me wrong. She's a very good-looking woman. She's a good-looking woman, and I've seen her in lots of things. And I think that they cast well in that sense because I think that they cast a good person in that role because she did come off very flirtatious in those moments and she was a good looking woman. So I think she fit the bill in that sense too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think
she had that look. She was perfect for that character.
Yes, I think so. I think she did a really great job.
Yeah.
In that sense. So yeah, that's who I gave that to for that guy. But
that guy, Mark Boone, it's just because I knew that's fucking Bobby, man.
Yes.
Right? I know it's going, that's Bobby. What the fuck's his name in real life? But I couldn't think of it.
Well, that's why I didn't disagree with your pick because if I didn't, like I said, if I didn't already put him in Cameo, I was going to pick him in this as well, to be honest. Because I was like, I never remember his name, but that's every time I see him, I'm like, oh, look, it's Bobby.
Well, yeah, I just thought that I could figure the other guy played because it was a little bit of a longer role. I think the cameo, I gave the cameo to him, right?
I just remember who I think I gave that guy award to him for 7. Remember, he's the photographer. He's the guy that he buys photos from in 7. Yeah. Remember we talked about 7? Yeah. I did give it to him. I either gave him that guy or I gave him cameo in 7 as well. I remember that at this now. I was sitting here in the back of my head this whole time. I was like, what movie was that we talked about where I know I picked him before for something else too? Because he's in that same thing. In that movie, he's in for like 2 minutes when he shows up and gives them the photos. He's like the private eye detective guy that they hire, right? So yeah, photos for them. So of Spacey or whoever it was that a
lot of these people have been in crazy films, bro.
Yeah,
and you don't realize it.
It's funny because sometimes these guys get so far in their career and they're known for like maybe one thing. All of a sudden, like everyone like really loved that part. And like in this sense, like even for him, like now I think of Bobby whenever I think of him because of his role in Sons of Anarchy. Yeah. But if you look at his IMDb, he was in so many other big movies, even if they were bit parts prior to that. That's what I mean. It's impressive to think that these guys, they don't know that these movies are going to be big. And then all of a sudden, they get 20 years into their career or whatever, and they're like, wow, look at all these things I've been a part of, whether it was like a day on the set or whatever, right? So it's kind of cool to sometimes think back and look at that.
He's been in Batman. He's been in fucking Memento.
Yeah.
Oh, man. He's been in a lot of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember him in Memento as well. Well, yeah.
The Mandalorian.
Yes.
He was in a chapter in Mandalorian, I guess.
Yeah.
Wow, man. They do a lot. You forget. And I'm not even down to the movies yet, really. The real movies.
He's been in lots of things, man. So
yeah. You forget this. That's just 20 years ago. They don't know what their life's going to be like in 20 years.
No. Oh, so it's kind of cool. Kind of cool to look back, I'm sure, for these guys too.
Yeah.
Okay. So next up, Clutch Performance.
What do you got? I know, man. Most of them were, man, in this fucking movie, man. This is not easy.
So this is a last minute change for me, man.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it to the old man. I'm gonna give it to Ray Walston, man. I felt like I had to give this to John Malkovich, and if I don't give it to him in that category, I feel wrong because like opposite Gary Sinise, of course, he's the next best thing, right? And it's not even because of the type of role that he played here and as difficult as that was and everything else, but those two scenes with the old man though, like and if you want to talk about Clutch Performance, he edged him out for me. I wrote down John Malkovich here, but the whole time I'm thinking to myself, I want, like, that guy did such a good job, that old man. I'm gonna switch that out very last minute here, and I'm gonna have to say him, Ray Walston. So just talking about it here today on the show, I'm like, I can't not give it to him. Those two scenes were really great, I thought, and I'm gonna give it to him over John Malkovich. So go ahead.
Nice. What do I got for you? Oh wait, I'm gonna sneeze. This is the worst. When it's there and you want to sneeze.
Oh yeah.
For my Clutch Performance, I'm gonna, I thought of the scene of, like I said, with the stable buck, because I thought it meant a lot. But sure. I think, but for Clutch Performance, yeah, I'm probably gonna give it to John Malkovich for this one, because
I'm glad.
You know what?
I wanted to, but yeah, I'm glad.
Because even in each of the little performances he was in individually with people were clutch, even though. Like I said, he didn't have much to talk to them about.
Yeah, they had to be. Without him, the movie doesn't work.
And it actually made the other characters work.
Yes.
Right. By him playing this character, and made you understand, and then you're kind of forced to listen to the other person's side too.
Because that let these people actually like talk about themselves to him, because he wasn't really adding much to that conversation side of things. Yeah. That's, I mean, that was it. You were able to relate and understand those people more playing opposite of him. That was the whole point, right? Yeah, no, I agree. Like, yeah, you're so right, Jay. That's yeah. I mean,
when you're saying you couldn't have this movie. I mean, you couldn't have it without that character, John Malkovich. But sometimes people just want somebody to listen to, and to listen to them, regardless if they're paying attention or not,
right?
Or if they have anything intelligent to say to the conversation. I've noticed that in life, period. So when you're somebody like that too, as well, you're there and you'll listen, until you get angry or something like that, and maybe something that sets you off. But other than that, you can pretty much vent to them and not worry about them saying anything, to be honest, right? And I think that's what worked, because a lot of these other characters were allowed to, when they were in a scene with him, they were allowed to be that character alone, and they had to play off of really nothing. They've had to play off their own acting, because he's not really adding anything to it, but kind of a spaced out character, right?
Right.
So it makes it harder for, I think, the other actors to act too, right? So, yeah, I think, and like I said, with the whole conversation with him and just say the stable buck guy himself, and even just the women and how he reacted to that and stuff like that, right? To what's her name there, the Curly's wife there, right? Just the way he had to talk to her when she came in and talked, like he wasn't really focused. He was just more in like sort of thing, and
yeah,
just needed somebody to talk to.
Yeah,
apparently, bitch.
Now you're relating to him.
Now I'm starting to relate to him. See, maybe this is why I got a little bit of both of them in me.
Yeah. So yeah, good. I'm glad you picked him, because it was close. Like I said, I had him written down. I was hoping that you ended up picking him there, because I just last minute change for me. I had Ray Walston in there. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, great picks. All right. So next up here, speaking of picks, nitpicks. Any issues with the film, Jay, that you had?
No, they actually depicted everything from what I can understand of that time and stuff pretty well. Like, I don't know if I had 100. I was trying to look for like I was trying to get down the little details of the picks for the film, but I couldn't even pick that stuff out. I mean, I think everything was pretty much on point. Like, I mean, for the time period that they were in, like that's what I was having a hard time figuring out, because I knew they said depression halfway through the movie.
Yeah.
During the Depression. So, or maybe I had read it somewhere that it was during the Depression, but chances are they might have said it during the movie at one point.
I don't think so. No, I don't.
No, right?
No, I don't think so.
So I
don't think at the I don't think at that moment in time they were calling it that. I think it was after that moment in time.
Yeah, they call it the Depression. Yeah.
Yeah, because you got to know they had to know when that time ended for them to really, you know what I mean? Like
you know what? I got a good nitpick.
Maybe they did call it during the time, but I would think that would be something that they would refer to as the Depression era after the fact, right? I mean, I don't know, or because this is right smack, not even in the middle as of yet. This is very early on in the Depression. I think this is takes place 3 years into it. I think this film, right? So I mean, that's the whole reason for the Depression is because of the fallout of the First World War and how everything kind of caught up to them at that moment in time, right? And then they fucking went straight into a stuff.
Everything, right? Everything caught up.
So I mean, it was it was a bad time to be alive.
It was, bro, man. Like, you survived the war to come back and just bust your ass working, man.
Yeah, like these people in this film, like the only person that probably was comfortable in this movie was the ranch owner, right? Like, it was just everybody else.
No, everybody else was just fucking feeding off him, like, $50 a month.
Yeah,
no,
I think that was the only person that was probably doing well here.
But I think that was a nitpick too. 10 acres for $600. That's a nitpick of mine. Like, fuck, where can you get 10 acres for $600 nowadays? Where can you get a fraction of an acre for $600?
You can't even see an acre for that much, right? I think you gotta.
You're not even allowed to see a parking spot for that price.
I think you should save that for what hasn't aged well.
That's in there too. Don't you worry, man.
All right. What do I have here? All I had was that it was a slow. It wasn't. I didn't think it was a great start to the film, but I went back on some of my thoughts on that later on. Like I said, because I feel it was more effective. Like it was a slow start for me though. For a first time viewing, I could see people like dropping out or not, or you know what I mean, not enjoying it. Maybe the first little bit of the film. At least I didn't. And then I think while effective later on, unless you really invest the time into watching this movie and kind of pushing yourself through that first little bit, I think that they would have lost some viewers possibly if you just maybe caught this on TV or something like that, especially a movie like this, right? I think because it takes, you know what I mean, like they not explaining really like what was going on at the start is you know what I mean, like whether or not that makes you want to find out what's going on or draw, you know what I mean, or if it's sometimes things like that happen in films and they don't ever touch on it, and then you're just kind of left waiting and trying to wonder, and they still left you wondering, right? So I mean, I think that I get that that's probably a choice, or maybe they're just pulling from the material and this is kind of what they have, and that's why they kind of presented that way. And I think I understood why they didn't describe it, what happened later on in the film. Like I said, I think it was effective in the long run, but yeah, at first it really threw me. So that was like a little bit of a nitpick. I think they could have done a better job of bringing you into these characters and this time period at the start of the film. That they did, right?
And then if you didn't relate to just the maybe John Malkovich character in the beginning, of any character,
it would lose you
like
right
that,
away,
you would lose you right away. Yeah, if you couldn't get like somewhat entertained with this character, and I hate to say it by saying it, but it is entertaining in a sense because it's what it was meant to be, an entertaining. It's a movie, right?
Exactly,
it is entertainment, right? But yeah, if you weren't entertained by that part, you wouldn't have stuck around to figure out what the fuck was going on, right?
No.
They would have, like you said, they would have lost you.
Yeah, so I think that's important to note, and that's why it was a nitpick of mine. But ultimately, I think that they recovered pretty well, and you know, after the fact, I think of the start, I think it was good. So
I got a nitpick for you. I got a nitpick for you. This is what I thought you were going to say. Why are they hurting so many animals in this movie?
Yeah, well, I think that's in another category. Yeah, I didn't love it. I didn't like seeing, I don't like seeing whenever it comes to animals or children and stuff in film, it's hard, man. It's hard. Like you said, like even when like Leslie talks about she doesn't want to do killer content talking about things happening to children. I understand that. Like when it comes to that kind of shit, all bets are off. Like I don't even in films, like I don't like them depicting rape. Like I think there's some things where I like dark stuff and I can kind of handle a lot, but I think that depending on the situation or who it's happening to, or you know what I mean? Like it varies for me. Like some stuff, it's hard for me to watch like that. That's why like sometimes when the tagline of a movie is like this guy dealing with a disease, I'm like, I'm good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, I don't need to watch that. Like, honestly, like, so like, something
I
like
needed to bring you down to what kind of stuff I watch, the dramas and
no, but that's what I mean. Like, I don't think I don't like subjecting myself to that always. So like this film does it in a way where they bring you in. That's why those fucking are the real tearjerker films where they do this kind of shit where they kind of make you think it's about
reel you in,
yeah, and then all of a sudden you're fucking crying about this fucking guy getting shot in the head.
You fall in love with Lenny,
So like, it's well done when they do that kind of, and they put on the fucking sad sack music when they fuck whatever the hell that fucking music.
It still gives me chills, man, watching this movie. I told you, it brought tears to my eyes. Still, this movie, it's still to this day.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, there's something about it, man, because it makes you feel for him in the beginning.
It does. So, well, okay. So, what's aged the best? I think just a lot of the themes that we've been talking about throughout. I think, like I said, like there's the theme of this film, I think has aged very well. And even the whole aspect of, like I said, of someone using this character
Story.
to relate to other people in the film, and the way that their outlook on the world, or the world's outlook, like perception of them and themselves and all that kind of stuff. I think it was it's aged very well. I think it has themes that is, for a thing that was done in the 1930s, I think still ring true in that sense to today. Like, you could all learn a lot and take a lot, like, you know what I mean, like, from this film in that sense. Yeah, the character development, companionship, even like the good old, like, making plans, having a dream, the good old American dream type aspect to this film, right? I think still exists to this day, right? So I think
about
again,
$600.
yeah, all the themes. I think just the themes of the film, I think, have aged very well, because you can't really say a lot of things have aged very well, in my opinion, unless, I'm interested to hear what you have to say. But because it's a period piece, not a lot of things have, not even a lot of the sensibilities and a lot of the ways that people are treated in this film, for that matter, right? So I think, like, obviously, right, and because it's a period piece, most things won't. Right, especially in our fucking PC culture today, right? I mean, and in some sense, very good, and we've learned a lot from, obviously, but in another sense, no, not when it comes to other aspects. But we don't need to get into that whole ball of wax right now. I just mean, but I think the themes have stayed true in this film to this day, like, and you can all relate to a lot of things in this movie still.
Well,
so
you said you can take that base storyline and actually adapt it to just about anything right now. Right? I mean, this type of two characters getting together and becoming friends, and two totally different people, whether it be two guys like this, or whether it be a man and a woman, whether it be, you know what I mean, a person and a dog.
Wait till you hear my pick for the next movie. And even this pick, oddly enough, is almost exactly like this film, but different. You're gonna see when I mention the movie that I'm picking at the end of this show, guys. So
I might have an idea, but
yeah, okay, I'm sure you do. Maybe just because of more recent talks, but the film is, a lot of the themes are the same from this movie, just very drastically different, because it's something taking place in today's times compared to those times
back in the day.
Yes, so you'll see, and it's interesting because that's why I felt that we had to do this pick after I kind of watched this movie. I was like, oh, that's a perfect pick on a lot of levels right now, just because I think it'll be a good follow-up to this, because it's a full 180. Like, it's a whole different kind of, you know what I mean, a scenario, but very, very similar themes. So
okay, that'd be nice to hear. I mean, it was, I thought I'd throw off the theme right now, because Peter threw me off with the last one with the whole Private Ryan thing, and
well, we did two fucking war movies.
Yeah, man, you guys fucked me up.
What was like, realistic and what was it? Right?
You fucking confused the two, and you want me to know my history.
That's the beauty of doing this show, though, man. Yeah. I think sometimes you learn things from doing these shows, not even about the films, just about, like, the things that maybe inform the stories in the films, right? Like, you learn and other people's perspective on things, or how they interpreted things. So that's what I mean. I always love doing these shows for those reasons, right? Because I think we learn a lot from doing these shows, and it doesn't even necessarily have to do always with the movie, right? So yeah, it's interesting.
No, very interesting. No, but the storyline, did age the best. I think the storyline going along, and even when you look at some of the stuff that's related to, when you look on IMDb right now, that I could see where it starts talking about things that are like this movie, more like this movie, and you start looking at the titles there, and you're wondering I've been wondering to myself, how much are they the same? Because I've seen some of these, I've seen they're showing Lord of the Flies, they're showing the Old Mice and Men and stuff like that, but I'm trying to see where that storyline falls into place in some of these movies. Now, I was thinking about that too, even right now as you're talking about it. I've been thinking about, in my head, other movies. Yeah, I mean, I know I can picture a couple in my head right now off the top of my head, but I just they use the same storyline.
Yeah.
Right. And the only thing I can understand, the only thing I can get out of it is that they did it from the old movie. They did it from the book. It's all come from people reading the book throughout the years, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of these directors nowadays probably read that book growing up.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's given in school, right? I mean, yeah, that's
Well, I mean, that was probably post computers and stuff like that. So I think post,
right.
all
No,
the movies. Like, yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's issues with other books that they've called American classic literature, like
Well,
Huckleberry Finn, for instance, because of their use of the N word and things like that.
question though,
Yeah,
with a movie like this, because I had a hard time finding unless you rent or buy it from one of the platforms, right?
yeah.
Think would this have aged in the best category or worst category if you think about it? Because in the sense that having to find this movie is difficult. Now, is it difficult because of the way they're talking about the story, or is it because of like some of the touchy subjects that they get
I
onto?
mean,
Or
for
no?
some that might think this is a touchy like story or subject, you may think that it hasn't aged
Yeah,
well in that sense because maybe they want to. If you're saying that you're thinking they're burying it as a result of maybe it not being great for people to watch now, I think you would have a lot of people that would disagree with you there, right? I think this is still a very important movie, and the story that's being told, I think, is still relevant.
oh yeah, for sure, right?
Honestly, I really do. I think it has aged well. I
Yeah,
think, but to your point, there's so many other things I think people now, as we've gone on in the years, that have been exposed to, and other things that they can, you know what I mean, like use
yeah,
as examples of stuff nowadays.
yeah. So
Maybe
they're
it
not
has,
relating it as in two people, maybe, but they're relating it as in a subject matter or
yeah.
something.
Plus, because of the period piece part of
Yeah,
this whole film, as the years go on, obviously it's gonna age less. It's not gonna age well at all, like as the years go on in that sense, right? Because
mhm.
once this thing's 100 years old, there's going to be people that don't even remember this time, right? Or there's always going to be a record of it, of course, but it's just going to be like they'll
But
have
how many
nothing,
people are going to research it, really?
or how many people are really going to take the time to go out of their way to watch it. But that's what I mean. You pointed out the fact I never seen this movie, and it's from the 90s, and I've seen lots of shit during that period. I've never went out of my way to watch this.
Good
I was
movies in the
aware of
'90s,
it.
man.
I've always been aware of it. I always knew what it was about. I've never gone out of my way to watch this movie. So there
No,
you
right?
go. So I'm an example of that. I never really chose to, right? But there's lots of classic literature. There's all kinds of things that people have not exposed themselves to from this era, and they've made how many remakes of some of these things, right? Just because we feel like maybe we're not interested in it, or we're not, you know what I mean, or just they're not readily available, to your point, right? So
Yeah. Oh,
anyways,
I literally, I want to find this book because the book's probably aged well too,
probably.
right? If you
Probably.
think about it, like
Uh, yeah, no, probably. Okay, Jay, but go ahead. Then what's age the worst? You were just pondering if this has aged bad. What do you think has aged badly in the film? I think we talked about most of it at this point.
bringing women into the barn, no, meeting them in the barn by yourself, no. You know what I thought was funny that I don't know how you don't see it as much. Maybe I just don't go places where you see it as much. But that horseshoe game, tossing horseshoes, doesn't go isn't as age pretty fucked up. You know, they were tossing horseshoes before before he killed the girl there.
I've seen people play camping and shit like that before, but
But
yeah,
not like heavy duty horseshoes like that. You're gonna get knocked in the fucking head with that shit.
no,
It's,
you're right. You're right. No,
like I don't think I would let my younger nephews, or I don't think my brother would let to play with real horseshoes, or even as you get old. You know, as you get older, I guess like their age, it's different, right?
I played
What a
horseshoes.
stupid game. I
I
am not
played
a fan.
I've played horse. Have you ever played horseshoes? I played horseshoes. I played it a few times, but
Yeah, but I'm not a big fan. I'm a big fucking deal,
yeah.
right? I mean, it's just throwing like really throw a horseshoe to fucking
You rather fucking play bocce fucking with your Italian ass. You want to
I
throw
don't
balls?
I don't even want to play with balls, bro. Right? You know, it's
Bocce's
just
fun too, though, right?
it's the same style of thing, but you're using a round ball instead, so you
It
gotta
is.
kind
I
of get
mean,
it closer.
it's the same objective instead of
It's
ringing.
curling on the grass.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. But to your point, like you're not gonna see people fucking play horseshoes in the city. So I understand what you're saying. Are gonna be people like
Black people sleeping in a barn, bro. That ain't gonna be happening. That's age bad. That's age bad.
the city version of horseshoes is dice.
Quarters. I think it's quarters or
It
something.
was
I don't know.
quarters. It was dice. It was if
Whatever
you
you had in your pocket.
if you were on the schoolyard back in the day, marbles, right? Like there's been all kind. No, it's true. There's been all
Marbles, I
kinds
know.
of aspects of so I hear what you're saying. Maybe that itself hasn't aged
Specific game,
well,
yeah.
but games like that have aged well in that sense,
I
right?
guess
But not
between a group of men too, like when they're just finished work and shit like that, having a
having
couple
a tournament.
beers.
Yeah.
I
So
don't know. I have a couple of Timmies and I have a few cigarettes. That's what happens to me. No fucking games here.
but anything else?
No, I don't think. I think everything, even like just the way they showed everything, even the machinery they use in the barns and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They age. I mean, obviously, we don't use that technology anymore, right? I mean, it's kind of so that sucks, but it always looks good for these types of movies, right? When they do it properly. But I just think those don't age well. Nothing like that labor work like that doesn't age well.
No, I was about to say.
You got one machine that does that whole fucking job now, bro.
Well, that's like I was saying, like, these are the easy things to pick out from this film that you can point to because like truly nothing has aged well in that sense of like what they were up to in this film. But yeah, like I said, I just basically wrote down the obvious things, nothing interesting here, like the mistreatment of animals, the mistreatment of women, mental disabilities, racism, ranch workers.
Those are all it did. It aged bad, but all together made the movie age well.
Right. Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying because but it is a period piece showing you that this is how it was at that time, right? So that's what I mean.
Learn something from it, basically.
Yep.
Is what they're saying, right?
Yeah. So that's
what they call a period piece when they want you to learn something from it because
it's when when the movie takes place. So sometimes things are universal or they don't actually mention like they're like this took place at this moment in time, or they don't really like, you know what I mean? Like there's some movies that are timeless. Like there's some movies where it's hard to tell the way they shoot it or the subject matter of the film that you can't really tell what the period was that this movie took place. You know what I mean? Like you could always like find something about technology maybe that was different in the film or something like that. But sometimes filmmakers are very smart and they make it so like, you could say, hey, this is sometime during the 1900s. We don't really know when, right? I
didn't know when exactly. I knew it was depression, but I didn't know when it all was taking place.
But I think that they really, if you pay attention to this movie, it is particular in the sense like it does take place in this moment in time, right? Where other movies, if it's just a general kind of plot, it's about somebody robbing a bank. Oh, okay, well, you know what I mean? Like, well, that could have happened. Obviously, I guess didn't happen before the time there was banks, but if not, you could say like that happened at any period of time there was a fucking bank, right?
Yeah.
You would have to really look at it and say, well, look at the technology, look at the way people are dressed, right? Unless they're like specifically trying to tell you this is during the banks of the 1990s or something. You know what I mean? Like, so like that's what I mean by period piece. Like they're trying to show you that this is taking place during this period of time, right? So,
you think this movie can be timeless in that sense?
The themes are.
Yeah,
the themes are. I think that's why I think it's aged well in that sense. But I think that not in the sense that people could watch this and maybe they could relate to maybe some of the messaging or the themes or like the you know what I mean, like what they're trying to say maybe about these times, this time and play people, but I don't think people would be able to relate to the manual farm work and there's some things that a lot of things I think that people would have hard time wrapping their heads around, even like today's generation, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure. Even worse. Like I mean, I have a hard time wrapping my head around that manual labor.
So
okay,
unanswerable question. So it sounds like you have a lot. So I'll give mine first here because I don't got much. My only real question of this, there's two things, and I think
why'd you make me watch this movie?
No. Two things. Was that guy just like that guy's stump? Like, was that just like literally like a fused together like knob, like that, like a scarred up like hand, or did he have some sort of like wooden like stump there? What was that? Like, was that just a stump? Like, it just didn't heal well because it looked very gnarled and like, you know what I mean? Like, what back then a stump would be without like actual like plastic surgery.
Well, they probably had to. I'm thinking they had to heal it. They had to help him on the barn, like on the farm, right? And who knows how long before that did it take place?
Right.
Before this time, did it happen in the war where they just fucking?
Oh yeah, that's true too.
Now that you said it, it could be post-war, the First World War,
Yeah.
right? Then if did it happen in the war, because he would have been somebody that had to have gone because he would have been young enough,
yeah,
to go. And maybe it happened there and he fucked up, or maybe it happened with the machinery and they just weren't able to wrap it properly.
Well, I mean, if anything, you
proper surgery.
Maybe even cut off his hand and then they cauterized it or something. You know what I mean? Like
that's basically what they would do back then.
That's what I mean. So like, they never really kind of like, it wasn't a topic of conversation, let's say, in the film. Like he mentioned he can't do shit because he's got one arm. But other than that, you just kind of see the dude with the nub and you don't really get like the full story. That was my unanswerable question, is what really exactly happened with that guy in his hand, right? Because like, it's such a, you know what I mean? Like, but again, I think back then, like you said, they didn't have the,
medical thing.
Yeah, it wasn't, science
that advanced.
Yeah, it wasn't that advanced at that time, and
no 911. You couldn't just pick up the phone and call 911 and have an ambulance come to your house. You know what I mean? You basically had to do it there, or you died. Especially if you bled that much, like where your hand would come off or something. So I could see them cauterizing it, doing something like that.
No, they had to have had like.
Yeah, but they didn't have an ambulance to pick you up to the hospital.
Yeah, had to have had ambulances by that time. No,
but this is why I would think I think, like you said, now that you said it before, a lot of civil rights and stuff, this was further south. The only thing you don't see in this fucking thing is a Confederate flag. It's the only thing you don't see in this. And I don't know, you might have a glimpse of it.
This takes place in the South, right? I mean, it does. Yeah.
So the only thing is you don't see that, and that's I wouldn't doubt that it's in that time period.
Actually,
right?
Actually, no. This actually takes place in. Oh no, they did mention this. It says actually takes place in California. Actually, so we're wrong about that. Yeah,
but it is South.
Yeah, East. but not like
Southwest. Sorry,
South. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's not like you said where you're gonna see the Confederate flag and shit like that. But yeah, no.
But where were they walking from? Where do they travel from? That's the question.
Well, at least this description says they were going from place to place in California. So yeah, you're right. There are certain towns and counties or whatever that were probably worse than others in that sense, right? I mean, there's pockets. There always is. I mean, even till this day, right? In that sense, right?
Yeah. California was a fucked up place too, especially back then too, with the laws.
This is weird to see a movie that takes place in California in this time period as well. Actually, if you think about it.
Well, that's what I mean. That's why it's like this had to be post. And even pre. It had to be, like you said, post-war, but pre.
World War II.
No, the civil rights movements and stuff like that, and all that crap, right? Because I don't think anybody but Americans had rights down there.
Yeah, or unless you had money and you were white, and you weren't gonna have like.
Well, that's what I mean. American, like whatever was American, considered American back then, right? Like, and not of color. Right.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, that's all. Really, just that and what happened. What happened? I think you have this one as well. Probably is where did that guy go from there at the end? Does he go back to the ranch? Does he go back? You know what I mean? Like, what happened to George post this end of him shooting Lenny?
Yeah, did he take off? Did he do it himself? Did he go and admit it? I understand that part.
Did the old man still go with him? Right? Like, we don't know. Like, I mean, did he go?
But that's the cliffhanger, man. That's like the cocksucker. You didn't want to tell me that one. You told me everything else about this movie, but you don't want to tell me what happens to Lieutenant Dan. He went to go help Forrest. That's the thing. He got somebody else to lean on his shoulder. He dealt with another guy with some issues. But yeah, so I've been doing good, man. I got all the way. I've been getting good.
You've been doing great. No, it's all good, man.
I've been actually really good. I'm
listen, this is why in a way, I thought you were trolling me, because I'm like, I commend you for wanting to talk about this film, but I don't think we've done anything wrong here today, but it's just
it's hard.
The PC minefield that you have to go through nowadays to talk about something like this is fucking horrible. You know what I mean? Like, all we're doing is talking about a film that depicted this thing. You know what I mean? We're not doing anything wrong here, but instead we're fucking trying to watch what we say because of these fucking like being politically correct in a movie that was during a time where they weren't politically correct. Like,
Yeah, it's hard to do, man.
But when you talk about something like this, that's what I mean. Sometimes you got to talk about the content, and especially if you're reviewing a movie, you're not in the wrong by doing so. You're not, because all you're doing is fucking telling the people at home
how it was,
what we've seen and what we've experienced by watching this film, right? I mean, now if we went and took this, whatever happened here, and started calling people out like in the way they did in this film, then yeah, maybe that's a little different, right?
Well, the conversation off screen might have been a little different between me and you, just because we're friends and we know how stupid we can get to each other, right? But so it's just guys. I mean, for JT to keep himself like this, man, it's pretty good for a whole fucking episode, man. That's for a movie like this. But why was Curly? I could never understand this. Why the fuck did Curly have his glove on his hand with the oregano or whatever the fuck? Why was he keeping it soft for his wife? Is that he said he was keeping it soft for his wife, right? That's what he was telling all the guys. He's keeping one hand soft for his wife, right? But I mean, I know he did some boxing, and they were saying that he did some boxing and stuff. Was he hiding something underneath that fist, or you know what I mean? Like,
I don't know. So, that's a good question. That's a good question. I don't know,
because they had made that comment about him covering up the one hand, right? So
yeah, they did.
And why do they always want Lenny to talk for himself all the time? Like, is it really that big of a deal if somebody else is answering his questions? That's another thing I thought was weird. I mean, I get why you want to hear from that person, but I mean, if they say that person's shy and this guy's just helping you out, you just listen to the fucking guy. I mean, nowadays it'd be different, right? Obviously, right?
Yeah,
we wouldn't care really so much, right? But this is the one that you made me add in there.
Okay.
Would he have shot him if he didn't talk to Slim beforehand? Would that have changed his mind on how to deal with, if he didn't to Lenny at the end?
A nitpick, by the way, too. Sorry. So would he have shot him if he didn't talk to Slim?
Yeah, Slim was the boss. Remember when they were talking about you got to go and you got to either put him in a cage because they're going to put him at the hospital or in the cage.
So there was a moment there where he looked at Slim, because this whole time it seemed like Slim was looking out for his situation because he knew what was up. But you're right. When they all got on the horses to ride off to go like fucking kill this guy or whatever else, he looked to him for being the voice of reason or help him out in that situation of his time of need. And he kind of shook his head. He's like, yeah, not this time. And he kind of got on the horse and like, you know what I mean? Like there was that moment where like, you're right. Would he have done so if he did? I don't know.
That was one of those things that's like, I would like to see how they depict that in the book.
Yeah, that's true. I will tell you what, though. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you.
What? Yeah. You're talking too soft here.
Fucking Hank Hill over here. I've been watching a lot of King of the Hill lately, by the way. I have. I'll tell you what. So
propane. Sorry.
Yeah, propane accessories.
Oh my God! Go on.
To your point though about that, would he have shot him? Something you just reminded me about is a nitpick that I fucking had. Was he wouldn't have had to even get near that situation. They probably would have got away with it if it wasn't for fucking these idiots not seeing Lenny's hat in the barn. This old ass man and George were sitting there for like 10 minutes observing the crime scene. Not only was the old man there, and then George came and was there for a little bit. They were in there by themselves with these guys. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't see the hat. The hat is literally right beside the body. I'm like, you didn't see. I get it. Like, your mind would be racing. They're trying to figure something out. Like, what are they gonna do? Right. But even in that moment, he was ready to go to bat for him and protect him. In that sense, he was just trying to figure it all out. Right. So you're right. I think at first he wasn't. But I think when it came down to it and they were already on their way to kill him, once he started for that road to run and cut them off and find him where he went in the hiding place, he had already decided. I think you're right. So I think you're right. That moment where he did have that exchange with Slim, I think he figured it out right there and then because he had no other choice. But like that really pissed me off. I'm like,
he didn't want them to kill him. He wanted to do it himself. Like I get it.
Right.
If they were gonna kill him, because that's all they were gonna do, dude. You knew it.
Yes. Of course,
it was coming. Those guys, Curly was coming for blood, man. And whether it be on the property or whether they find him down the street,
right?
There was going to be no fucking law involved at all.
Not at that point in time, no. I mean that, and then that was unavoidable, honestly. And that woman was an idiot. I mean, she put her putting herself in that situation where she was getting him like pat her hair and stuff like that. Like you can clearly see. guy was grabbing his dick half the time when he was seeing
See,
her.
that's another question I want to ask you too, bro. No, you just brought that up.
He was horny as hell. I mean, like you could see even when he first
did he understand that? Did he understand what was going on?
No, I don't think so. He felt there was a sensation there. He obviously said that girl's real pretty. Like the first time he met her, that first interaction when she came in, when she first met them, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think he had an understanding of what was going on down there, but he grabbed his crotch, not in a way of like, I'm getting like, you know what I mean? But like as a reactionary thing until there was.
Because he was getting a boner. Obviously he's probably never gotten laid ever in his life. The poor guy. Right. Like, I mean, he's just he's a male. Like obviously if he's got a penis, it's going to get hard in that situation.
His sex drive obviously is still there, but it wasn't developed in the sense for him to actually know or what to do.
No, if he's a 5-year-old, you know, like in the mentality.
So that's but I mean, clearly there was an aspect of her hair rubbing against him that turned him on in that moment, right? Whether he knew it was going on or whatever, right? Exactly. And there was things he was attracted to from her in that sense. So that's what I mean. Like, I don't think
that brings up a fucked up question too, because I think he related to the softness and stuff like that to that reaction. This now when he sees those little cute little rabbits and the dog, and did he think was he getting that same?
I don't think he was getting off to the animals. I just think
like when he choked her too. Like when you think that was at a point where I don't even want to say it. I'm not gonna say it. I'll say it off the fucking
That was
screen.
The thing. He just wanted her to shut up in that moment. Like that was what was happening in that.
He was getting scared. Yeah, I know. He didn't know how to react.
So he did whatever he had to do. Like he explains it the best, George. He says he doesn't know any better. He didn't know what he was doing. So of course, when he was going to grab the dress or whatever, he freaked out. He was just trying to get her to calm down. And obviously that just pushes the issue even farther. But that's what I mean. Her knowing that he wasn't, he has mental disability. I think that she should have been a little bit more on guard herself. So she was really stupid to put herself in a situation like that as well. And that guy did everything that he could. He said, I'm not supposed to be around you. You shouldn't be here. It's not like George's advice in his head did not work. It did. She just fucking was like, why? What does it matter? I don't get to see anybody, blah, 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 blah. So she really fucking put herself in that position. Now, I don't want to say that it was her fault, but it kind of was. I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, she wouldn't,
But he wasn't he was a harmless looking guy. Like, I think the way they portray him in the older film, maybe, or in the book, they might have portrayed him as well. But he's a good looking guy. I mean,
right. Well, that's the problem. John Malkovich not, and he's kind of like a little, you know, I mean, he must have been still kind of pretty old in this, even though this is 20 years ago.
Well, what is he now? He
still looks like he's 40 in this movie, you know, right? So
it's like, kind of weird, yeah.
Right. So it's kind of like the whole thing is kind of like odd.
You do that. I want to see what this guy's.
How old he was.
How old is he? You know, Arquette is in there too. I didn't even realize.
So the interesting thing about that Arquette is that they know that I
know.
I guess before she died, so his name was always Alexis. Yeah. He transitioned into a woman, and then he actually transitioned back, and then he died a few years ago. He's always had issues. Like David Arquette had talked about Alexis. I think even on the Stern Show, I think he maybe talked about it. So yeah. So his name was always Alexis, and I think he identified as a man at first. In this film, he was one of the ranch people. I don't know which one exactly, but then he was a woman.
And because it throws you off.
And then I think he transitioned back before he died. So I think he was identifying as a man before he died, if I'm not mistaken. It was one or the other. He transitioned back and forth, though, because we actually looked it up, because me and Christina were like, which Arquette was that? Because we were like, oh, that's the other Arquette, because they come from an acting family. There's a whole bunch of them, right? So, like, I was just like, oh, that's one of the lesser, because, you know, Patricia Arquette, you know, David Arquette. I was just like, oh, that's the one that they had a lot of issues in that family, from what I've heard from David Arquette and stuff like that, like interviews with Patricia Arquette. So, like, I didn't know.
The whole family was messed up.
Yes. I didn't know who he was in this film at that time. So me and Christine looked it up, and that's when we had read on is that he transitioned back and forth, I think, throughout his life, right?
Yeah, and I didn't know how to bring that up either as that person that you might know. Like, it was weird.
No, I mean, like, you know,
it's hard because in the IMDb pick, it's not the same person.
No, because like I said, they were a woman later on. Right? So,
So it threw me right off for a sec. But so Malkovich is what, 1953? So that makes him what?
Holy fuck! So he was 40 then. See, there it goes. Right?
So he was 40 or 50. Yeah, because he's 70. He's got to be almost 70 now, right?
93, so this was 92, so he was like probably 38 or something. I was right. I wasn't far off. He was like a 40 man here, so like it was.
See, we look hot at fucking that age, bro. You see what happens when you get to 40, so but then you see what happens afterwards.
DJ, you picked it all. You picked a film with all the pieces. Transitioning, the fucking racism, fucking.
I really put.
That's why I told you, Jay, before we got on the air today, I'm gonna keep my comments to the air. That's why I'm like, are you fucking trolling me or what? What is this, man? Like, I thought I'm like, this is the movie you pick.
No, bro, because I really like the movie. I really do. No. I genuinely like the movie.
There's nothing wrong by talking about tonight, of course. I'm just saying it's funny that you picked this movie, but it was a great movie. Absolutely. Yeah, no. So
I mean, and if I wasn't such a big fan of it and this whole storyline, don't worry, I would have been picking on it a lot more, bro. And it would have been a little bit different, bro.
To your point,
it would have been live.
I'm just saying, if folks just know you from the show and your J2 persona, they wouldn't think this would be your first film that you would pick. It'd be low on the list, right? So there you go.
I think Peter was surprised too when I brought it up to him that we were talking about it that day when we were at his place, right? I think he was like, "Oh yeah, that's a good," because he's watched it before, right?
Yeah.
So.
All right, here we go, guys. So
I couldn't figure this one out. You get me going because I really 20 years ago it's hard to fucking go through this shit.
Admittingly, I didn't spend too much time with this category. I just put one down and I looked into it a little bit, and there wasn't much to choose from, honestly, man. Like, because this was a hard one. This was a hard one, absolutely, like you said. But for me personally, and I might be wrong, and correct me if I'm wrong in this sense, for me personally, but just because I haven't seen much of his other stuff that he's been in past this moment in time, I'm going to say Gary Sinise, because Forrest Gump was 2 years after this. This is around the time that I think he probably was doing the most work that I've seen him in. The Stand miniseries, like this. So like for me, this is like when he like peaks for me, because like anything I kind of know of him is within like a 5-year period of this film. So maybe not this film exactly, but I'm gonna say that this was during the peak, at least. And he's still working to this day. But then he went and did like a bunch of CS, like he went and did a lot of TV shit, like a lot of like in terms of probably big films. He was in. For me, like this, Forrest Gump. I mean, even a few years later, he did Green Mile. I seen in his IMDb. Like, I have to go with like him though for me. Like, and it was hard. I agree with you. And then
he's got 13 Reasons Why.
But when was that?
That's 2020, and then you got
that was very recent. Yeah, but that's
I mean,
still working.
You got also Captain America. He was a narrator in Winter Soldier.
Captain America. Yep. Yeah, right. I still think like he still does stuff, but I gotta go with him. For me, I haven't seen much else that he's been in. Yeah, I don't watch that. I didn't watch.
No, I know, but I mean that's a big series, right?
Yeah,
I've seen 13 Reasons Why. Right, but yeah, really, other than that, there's not much.
But Jay, if you have to point, like you said, if someone has to say that what they know him best from, it's fucking Lieutenant Dan, right?
Yeah.
So that was from this time period. So that's what I'm going to go with, because I don't think that even to this day, I think of him as Lieutenant Dan. And Forrest Gump isn't even my favorite movie. If you want to pick that someday, go ahead, because like, I'm not going to come here.
He was in Ransom, Truman Show.
Ransom.
I know. Truman, the TV movie Truman.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Apollo 13.
But that was all, like I said.
After.
Yes. So I'm counting that as this period of time, like in the 90s. I think past 90s, for me at least, I didn't like. There's maybe stuff here and there he was in, but not to this degree. So I'm gonna say him for those reasons. But you're right; it's not easy. I mean, anybody I think you pick at this period of time, because you can't see fucking John Malkovich, you can't say the woman who played that. I mean, if anything, you can say I guess Ray Walston.
That's who I had is Ray Walston.
Right, because it's the end of his
life. Died after, man. Yeah.
I mean, he was real old in this, right? So I guess you could see him. Sure, yeah. If that's what you're
bro. He was born during the war in 1914, bro.
Yeah, there you go.
You know what I mean? He died at 86 in 2001. So
there you go.
Yeah. He did, yeah. So he didn't do much after, but he did some stuff like back in the day, Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yeah.
Right. The Sting. These are all old school movies, like Popeye, bro.
I think he was in the original Popeye with Robin Williams. Yeah, he's in that. I remember him from that. I think he was also in the original. Was it Get Smart or something? I was looking at his IMDb.
Probably. Yeah.
I think he was in the original show or something. I think I saw. Like
He's been on Star Trek. He's been on like Voyager. He was on Voyager for a while.
Oh, I've seen him before. I've seen him in other things. This Roy Walston, I have. Like I looked at his IMDb. You can make an argument for him for sure.
But I mean, it's really just TV shows after this. The Stand, you know what I mean? Like Alf, he was in that for a little bit.
So the Stand, both of them were in the Stand then, eh? Him and Lieutenant Dan, right?
Yeah, man. The Stand had it. This one, yeah, he was in the 1994 version. Same thing, man. The same one. They have Mice and Men. He's in Next Generation. He's in Voyager. He's fucking. That's where I had seen him a lot from too. Dream On.
Okay, because look, even if you go on IMDb for Gary Sinise, though, sorry, I'm just again backing up my pick for a bit. A good indication is to look at the known for section on IMDb. He's known for the four movies that come up known for are Forrest Gump 94, Of Mice and Men 92, Apollo 13 95, and Ransom 96. That's what the four first picks that come up for this guy being known for. So that's what I mean. Like that's for me. That was his period. This guy was probably doing the best work. Let's not say best work. He was just like on a roll during this period of time. But Ray Walston's a good answer. I like that.
Yeah, he was in just Ray Walston. I'm looking now. I'm going farther down because I'm only at 84 now. 1984, dude. I mean, he goes quite a ways down. And I'm looking down there, and I'm looking at all these little shows he's been in. Everything from like you said. He was in the original 21 Jump Street. He was a judge.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right. And then, now that I picture him, I can remember it, right? And just crazy stuff, bro, that he's been in, this guy. Where's that other one? I just seen it. It was hilarious. And he's been in it was in Night Court.
Oh, he's in fucking Paint Your Wagon.
Oh, he's in Johnny Dangerously, man. That one with I don't know. I don't know if you've ever watched Johnny Dangerously. That was fucking hilarious. You fought against ice holes. He would say like this guy. I think you know the people that's in it. Trust me, you would know some of the people that are in it. But he was just in it as a small.
Oh no, it's not Get Smart. You know what old show he was in here? My Favorite Martian. That's the one I saw.
Yeah. Johnny Dangerously's got Michael Keaton, bro.
Which they've remade. Oh, Michael Keaton's in that. Okay, which they've remade now into a film years ago. My Favorite Martian through Disney. But he was on that.
Joe Piscopo. These guys.
107 episodes.
They're in a lot of weird things. Like I mean, this guy because he's so old, right? He's been in a lot of stuff that passed before we were born. Now I'm getting into the age category like before I was even born.
Yeah, he was on Fantasy Island.
Yeah, you're probably right about to get short. Not good.
Oh, he was on Silver Spoons.
Silver Spoons, yeah. And then he's got a bunch of TV series.
Fast Times had a TV series.
Yeah.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High, the movie had a TV series shortly after. I didn't know that.
I thought it was a TV movie.
No, it says TV series here.
Yeah.
1986.
Who's in it though?
I don't know. But I guess it was a short-lived TV series based on the film, maybe. Yeah, the television series adaptation of the hit film Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which I guess only came out a couple years before this. Wow, that is weird. Who's in this?
There's a lot of weird stuff.
What are the people that's in it? Patrick Dempsey.
Oh fuck, eh?
Yeah, there's some names.
It seems like you know who would be in it, like
you know who's in it? Frank Zappa's
Rob Lowe and those types of guys. Yeah.
This is his daughter, Moon Unit Zappa. Isn't that Frank Zappa's daughter? That's their name, Moon Unit Zappa.
Fucking sure my Moon
Unit.
Of course
Frank Zappa would do that. That's hilarious.
Sure, my Moon Unit.
Martin Mull's in it.
There's a lot. Dude, some of these, if this cast here too, if you put them all together, the amount of stuff that they've been in there to see.
Oh yeah.
Like the amount of stuff that all of these guys, like everybody, even that guy, like you said, Curly, Cheryl Fenn and John Terry, he's in a bunch of stuff.
There are a lot of work between them for sure.
You know, not even then Noble Willington, the boss, man, he was in all kinds of shit because he's got that typical fucking Southern guy look. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So no, it was great. I mean, there was a lot of them
for sure. That was a hard one. Okay,
but that one, yeah. I like I said, I'll pick
Ray Walston. Yeah. Okay, all right, Jay. Finally.
Uh-oh.
Who won the movie for you, Jay? Who won this one? Go ahead.
No, as much as I like the comedy relief of Malkovich.
Yeah.
I think for me it was Lieutenant Dan that won the movie for me, man. Honestly, just because of the type of role he played and he had to play, and then he directed it too at the same time. So I mean, I'm going to give him both. As when I say won the movie, he did it on both ends for me. He got the movie done good, and he played a great part in it. He played his character, I think, to the point. And like I said, if I get a chance to read the book, I probably would be able to tell that. Some people have said that this version is not as good as the original, let's say, but
that's something we actually didn't mention until now. Actually, good job, Jay. Is that he also directed it?
Yeah, he did. That's a big credit right there.
Yeah, you know what? I
only got 5 director credits, right?
No, I know.
Like nothing good.
You fucking guy. I kind of want to give it to him now too because of that.
No, I went your way. I thought about it because I was like, you know what? At least this is a director I know.
Yeah, in that sense, sure, yeah.
You know, if you think about it that way, I don't know much of the other ones that you tell me, right?
For that reason alone, I think that's a good pick for the fact that he also directed this and he doesn't have a lot of directing credits. Yeah, no. That's a good point. That's a very good point. Well, but I'm gonna go opposite of you. I'm gonna finally give him a shine because I haven't put him in any other category till now, and this is why I had written down. I put John Malkovich because of the pure fact that this is a difficult role to play off. It could have went very badly, and I don't know if it was critically received badly at the time. I hope not. I don't know if it even got
awards.
Yeah, he did, right? That's what I mean. I don't think
I'm not sure.
I don't know in the long run if it was. That's what I mean. I don't know what people were talking about at the time because I didn't watch it at the time, and I was young, but I don't think that it was looked badly upon. And so I'm going to say because he had the most difficult and essential part in this story, for that reason alone, I'm going to say he won the movie because I thought he played it very well. And without him, the movie wouldn't have worked. So I think that, and I've never seen him play a character like this. So I'm going to say he won the movie for me for John Malkovich in this one. So, yeah. So
he did a great job. The thing is that the only reason I switched why I couldn't go that way either was because when I laughed, I'll be honest with you guys, when I laughed when he first came out as George and did the talking, because I forgot, and I was a little stoned at the time, but I was stoned and I giggled, okay, and I thought to myself, this is not right. I can't be giggling,
right?
You know what I mean? And as much as I liked his acting, I think it wasn't serious enough for me to look at. Even now, at an older age, I had a hard time.
I was questioning it. To your point, I was questioning it, but it didn't. I don't find I was cringing throughout. So that's why I'm going to give it to him because, I think that it could have been a lot worse. Not that it was bad, but to your point, I didn't find myself cringing.
I think I might have giggled a little more if I was with somebody watching it and I wasn't so much by myself.
But that's what I mean. But then whose fault is it? Is he at fault for the way he's playing it, or are we at fault as the viewer in that sense?
Depends how we're looking at it, though. If I'm looking at him like a fucking 2-year-old kid,
right?
Like a 2-year-old kid, then it might be a little different. But I'm not supposed to look at him like that.
I'm
supposed to look at him a grown man.
Yeah.
So I gotta figure it out that way. I mean, that's why I thought of it just a little different, because I didn't think it was gonna make me. Honestly, I didn't think it was gonna make me giggle.
Right.
I thought, I'm a little bit more mature than this now.
Right.
But apparently not. Right.
Listen.
You get where I'm coming from.
I admit it already. There was a couple times I giggled too because just the effect of his voice, the sound of his voice, right? As because he sounds like he's trying to play a little boy and stuff like that, right? So it's hard, and instead you're watching a 40-year-old man play it, and I think that's difficult. And
I couldn't do it,
right?
I couldn't pull it off yet.
So
without being insulting in my own way.
I think your pick is great though for that reason.
The only thing too is because Gary, like I said, to your point earlier, that it does. I feel like I can relate better.
Yeah.
To him, so maybe that's why he won me over too as well. And then you do end up to that point seeing that he's got the director credit, so he did it all in this movie basically.
Yeah, I almost want to switch my answer to that. No, but I'll stick with Malkovich. I'll stick with Malkovich so we can give everybody their praise here. But That's good. I didn't I realized I read his name as the director, but I didn't take note of it as much as I normally do, as you mentioned, because he's not a super well-known director. Like he's not known. I think he's known more as an actor than a director, but obviously he has some directing credits, right? So
yeah,
I think that's very impressive that he not only like for the people that direct and star in their own movies, like that's not an easy feat from what I've heard. Like that's hard to do because you got to look outside of yourself and your performance as well as direct, like, you know what I mean? Like you got to critique yourself as well in these scenes, right? Like, and he needs a backup person to help him when he's doing the directing and stuff like that. So obviously, I mean, Malkovich was probably, he was happy with his interpretation of this character, right? Like anyways, yeah, good pick. That's a good pick. I think I agree with you a lot with that because of the directing thing. Yeah, that's great, man.
I was surprised like that. I thought of it like that. I just, like I said, I looked at this movie differently than I looked at it let's say 15 years ago when I watched it. Let's say for the first time.
Yeah.
You know, back in the late 90s or whatever, probably when I watched it, later 90s. But yeah, I looked at it going into it differently than I would have watched it back then, or that I remember watching it back then. So it was a lot different. It was actually a little bit more meaningful, I think.
Yeah, I'm glad I watched it now. It was good, man.
So, I don't think it's for some people. It's not made for when you're younger. You know what I mean?
I don't think so. No.
I think that's why they bring in only the book and they only introduce it in high school, right? Stuff like that. So
you have to be a little bit mature to understand, like, some of the I know
what's going on, right?
So there you go, guys. That's Of Mice and Men, Jay's pick for the month of March. I know it's April now, early April. We're a little bit behind, but as I mentioned, we're going to be coming back very soon with another pick for this month for April's pick. We'll be right back on track. And then I think given the scheduling now, because of the time that we have TikTok time and killer content throughout the month, being I think usually like the third, fourth week of the month for those shows, you're probably gonna if we keep on schedule, gonna see Late Night at the Movies more likely the first week or two of the month. So yeah, so look forward to, instead of like the end of the month, I think if we put out the next episode soon, you're gonna see us at the start of the month as opposed to probably later in the month. But things always change, but look forward to more. And the next movie that we're going to pick for April's pick, I'm going to announce it here today. And as I mentioned earlier, it's kind of similar in theme to this film as well, in a way that once I got to really thinking about it in a sense. And that is a movie that I was recently talking about with one of our viewers in the chat very recently. Shout out to Sal, who's also very active normally in the chat of these episodes. Yeah, good. JT, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thanks, Tony.
And I agree with that with Goat as well, Jay. Thank you. That was a great pick. Unexpected, and it was nice once in a while to be talking about a film I haven't seen, which I don't think has really happened.
Brought down to a different level, eh?
Well, it hasn't really happened that much on this show yet. I would have to look back, but I don't know if there's been any other movies that I've probably seen for the first time that we've done. Maybe like ones I've like sort of watched, but not like to this point where I've never seen this movie at all. So I might be the first one. So yeah, great pick. Great discussion it brought too as well. But our next pick is going to be Good Time, starring Robert Pattinson. All right.
Your boy.
Yeah, our boy.
Your boy.
Very and that's going to be coming soon. I figured I'd pick another film that's a little bit more recent that we've seen, me and Jay, more recently, and probably a quick discussion in that sense. And it's a little shorter than some other films, just so we can kind of get that out to you guys here this month as well, as this one that we just did. So I figured that'd be a good pick. And also, like I said, it follows similar themes. If you recall, Robert Pattinson takes care of his brother in this film, not very well.
Oh, is that the one? What's the call again? Say it again.
Good Time.
Good
with
Time.
Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, I'm just gonna write it down here because so I don't forget.
His brother in that film, I believe, also has some sort of a mental disability in this film.
Let's go with Rain Man. Let's do it all.
He's also his caretaker of sorts, but he does like a really shitty job of it, right?
Uh-oh.
So if you so check that movie out if you have never watched it before. I believe it's still on Netflix. Jay wanted Titanic. Yeah, maybe one day.
I need you to hold me up need you to hold me up in that thing.
When are you gonna come on the show, Goat? That's what we need to get on. We need to get Goat on here. He needs to come talk with.
They would have been perfect for this show, man.
Absolutely.
I'm still waiting for him.
I'm still waiting for him to appear on Late Night Chat, man. I think he hasn't been on the show till since his brief appearance on episode 100. That's how long that's been, and we're at 162 now. So you gotta get on there, Goat. JD's one of his episodes sometime.
So shy.
So there you go, guys. That's our movie pick for this time around of Mice and Men. Great pick, Jay. And my pick is for the next film is going to be Good Time, which is actually on Netflix still, I believe, guys. So check it out. It's on there. It's the Safdie brothers who directed it. The guys that did
my boys.
They did Uncut Gems. Which is the film that actually came out after this one. But if you know about Uncut Gems and how anxiety ridden that movie is, this one is exactly the same.
Fuck off, man. You're gonna fucking make me jump off a bridge, bro. Like, seriously, you're gonna have some therapy. Yeah. Some fucking therapy session. We need to discuss my money.
I know. Yeah. Maybe I didn't pick the best movie in that sense for you to watch, but this is a pretty crazy movie. I really like this one. I was talking with Sal in the chat the other day, and he's been on his old Robert Pattinson kick because of the fact that, the whole Batman thing.
Yeah.
And like I said, we were trying to bring this one out in the next couple of weeks. So without thinking too much into it, he had mentioned he just watched this. And I said, yeah, that was a really good movie. Maybe we'll talk about that one. And then, like I mentioned, similar themes to this film. And I figured because of the runtime on this one, and I didn't think it was going to be too deep of a film to discuss, I went with Good Time. So there you go, guys. Check it out. It's a really great film. He's really good in it, Robert Pattinson. And Safdie brothers, it was like the first, I think, big thing I guess they directed, if they directed stuff before this, at least that I'm aware of. And then they did Uncut Gems after this one. So definitely check it out. It's on Netflix. Look forward to talking about that one. And I already have my next pick lined up too after this one, man. I'm going back to back for this one because I want to do a more deep dive discussion on the next one. So this is kind of like it's going to be like a hopefully a quicker one than usual. This Good Time. Although there's going to be a lot to talk about, I'm sure, in this movie as well. Yeah, he was okay in Batman. All right, well, there you go. You got Goat's praise for Batman, Robert Pattinson.
Yo. Oh man, I'm ready to. I'll watch anything. At least I'll watch anything once. I don't know if I watched that one that you're talking about. I have to double check, but I don't know if I have.
You've seen it.
I
told you to watch it, and you watched it. We've talked about it.
Okay, I don't remember.
You watched it.
Oh, okay.
You watched it. I know you have because we talked about it on the show.
Oh, okay. That's good. At least I know something that it's 2 words, right?
Yeah. Good Time. That's the name of the next one. Good Time. By the Safdie brothers. They directed it.
Yeah,
all right, guys. So
not here.
No.
I'll have to find it. Don't worry.
It's not on Netflix anymore?
No.
Okay, so they're taking it off. So I'm gonna have to find the streaming service that it may be on, guys. So stay tuned or take a look for it online. I'm sure you can find it.
Yeah.
Good Time.
Yeah.
So,
otherwise, hit me up and I'll tell you where to find it.
There you go. Hit Jay up. All right, guys. Anything else, Jay, you want to leave us with before we sign off?
No, man. I was surprised I behaved myself this much for this movie.
Yeah.
I think everybody, should take a lesson from this cast from me. That I'm not always a
prude.
Prick or whatever you want to call it. Jackass. I'm not always ignorant, but when I want to be, I am.
There you go.
Hey, so there you go. But no, it was great movie, and I had a good time talking with you, man.
Yeah, it was good. This was a really great discussion. I really had a great time talking about it too. Like I said, I didn't know where we were going with this one when I first started watching it, but it actually turned out to be a really great movie, and I'm glad I watched it. Later, go. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Peace out. Stay safe. Well, man.
$0 for the show appearance, but if you do a good job, I might give you a hand job.
Hey, there you go. Hey, that's good incentive. Go. Come on now.
Come on now.
Pick us up on that offer.
What I'm willing to do for this channel.
There you go. All right, guys. And there's our regular J2.
There you go.
There he is again. All right, everybody. We'll see you guys next time. And yeah, stay safe out there and watch Good Time. And we'll see you next episode of Late Night at the Movies, also airing this month. So stay tuned. Later, guys.
All right. Peace out.